फाइनली कितने कंट्री, कितने रजिस्ट्रेशन?
20 countries, 20 countries.
अरे हाँ, ऑडियो ऑफ करो ना.
20 countries are registered and number of registration are 555.
Namaskar, Dr. Susila. I'm Sandeep Naik. Namaskar.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Blossom Kosher.
Good morning. Good morning.
This is Sandeep Naik. So
Sandeep.
nice to hear.
It's wonderful, wonderful to be here. When I'm supposed to speak, there's one thing there. Okay, it is.
Ask him what time is it.
Yeah.
11:30.
नमस्कार मीना जी, अवस्थी बोल रहा हूँ. नमस्कार.
Oh my God, we have so many.
नमस्कार. और सब ठीक है? स्वास्थ्य ठीक है आपका अवस्थी जी?
बिल्कुल ठीक है साहब.
गुड. नाइस टू सी यू ना, एवर यंग मैन ऑलवेज.
थैंक यू.
स्माइलिंग.
थैंक यू.
Savita, where's the music coming from? I have to stop a little.
Where is the login? Start video.
सर वो अभी म्यूट है.
Yeah, again, Secretary Sahab, again, Colonel Sahab, please start.
Namaskar, good morning. I'm Colonel Vikramjit Singh, Chief Director, NCDC, and Joint Coordinator of the webinar. It is my privilege to extend a hearty welcome to all of you to the international webinar, Entrepreneurship Development on Seaweed, Business by Cooperatives, jointly organized by LINAC NCDC, Department of Fisheries, Government of India, and NIDAC. I'm pleased to announce that today's webinar has aroused huge enthusiasm from stakeholders across the globe. I'm sure that with the inputs from all the distinguished speakers and the deliberation thereon will go a long way in promoting entrepreneurship in seaweed business, especially through cooperatives. It is going to be an important input for improving socio-economic status of people in Asia and the Pacific, and India in particular. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Yeah. Thank you, Vikramjit Singh ji, and greetings from NIDAC, Bangkok. My name is Salin Krishna. I am representing the NIDAC in Bangkok, the network of development of agriculture cooperatives in the Asia Pacific region. Today, we have decided to organize this webinar, which is a very important topic for the region, the Asia Pacific region, because seaweed production has not yet caught up in this region as expected. As we know, seaweeds have a lot of potential, both as a food and also as a industry input with several industrial applications from cosmetic to pharmaceutical industries. So I would like to welcome all the participants here. We have an excellent panel involving policymakers, scientists, and also industry leaders. So I think this will be a good opportunity for you to discuss and deliberate on how to enhance the sustainable production, consumption, and utilization of seaweeds in the region. Thank you very much and welcome again.
Namaskar. Good morning to everybody. I am Sandeep Naik. I am Managing Director of National Cooperative Development Corporation of Government of India. I am also Chairman of the elected Chairman of NIDAC. This is a great occasion for Government of India, the Department of Fisheries, the National Academy for Cooperative Research of NCDC, and NIDAC to join together to host this timely and very fruitful webinar on seaweeds. At the very beginning, I must thank all the distinguished panelists and also the participants for taking steps to register and be present in this webinar, which is being live streamed on 6 channels. On this Zoom alone, there are more than 200 people registered participating, but on the live stream channels, 6 channels, there are thousands others who are participating. NIDAC comprises of coastal countries. It is a great occasion for NIDAC to host the coastal countries who are its members, spanning from Africa, Middle East to the Oceania, Philippines, and things like that. So all those people NIDAC from NIDAC member countries are participating. I'm extremely thankful to Professor Salin Krishna from NIDAC Bangkok for putting together the experts and panelists in this group. I also want to thank Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, the Federal Secretary for Fisheries of Government of India, for having agreed to address the webinar and talk about the path that the Government of India has in seaweed participation, production and its harvesting. I thank Dr. Chopin. He has is very early in the morning for him in the east coast of Canada. I also thank other participants, Dr. Anicia from Philippines, Dr. Nugia from Vietnam, and our Dr. Susila Dr. Blossom Kochar, and above all, our great friend of NEDAC as well as NCDC, Dr. Avasthi, and Atul Seth ji, the Ms. Nime from Chennai and others. Thank you very much. Now I'll not take much time. I'll request Dr. Rajiv Ranjan to give his speech, as chief guest of this very timely webinar.
Thank you, Mr. Nayak, and I'm very happy to be participating in this international webinar on seaweed business development. And as mentioned, the government of India is very keen that seaweed, the whole cultivation and the entire value chain is developed. This is one area where we feel should be taken on a very high priority level. And we have done that in terms of, so I'll be sharing in the next 10 minutes very quickly some of it. There's a small presentation which I'll just get on with it. And we will skip through many of the introductory slides and come and tell you what are things which Government of India has planned and what has been already done in order to launch, I would say, this seaweed mission kind of a thing. We have prepared a very detailed action plan and strategy for the next 5 years. And we all know that it's a huge global value market. And can you just share the thing quickly, if you can get it quickly, and then, yeah, just go to the next one. Yeah, so this is the global market is almost 12 billion. Next. This is, the India has a very insignificant presence at this point of time. And that is what we need to do now to look at how we can change that. Next. This again is general. Right now, only 5,000 tons of cultured seaweed are produced and about 25,000 tons of wild seaweed is collected for market value of 300 to 500, because the way the seaweed, we don't have full details because it's very, very scattered and informal sector that is there. But I'll very quickly cover as to what are things that we have done. Next. Uses of seaweed, I'll not go because there are very eminent people who will be covering each aspect of it in great detail. And I'm very happy to have a galaxy of people who will represent each of them. So they will be doing justice to each of the various usage. Next, please. Now, this again is a big area, large scale opportunity, not only in biofuels, biopolymers, bio-based chemicals, seaweed sap as animal food and feed both for poultry and cattle. And this is again very important for reduced methane emission and very many things that we can do with that. I'll not go into this again, but food products for human consumption itself a US $5 billion market, which is something again in India we are not exploiting, and we would like to now get into this area also. Next, please. These are important cultivable species. Next, please. Capophagus, Gracilaria, these are the things which we will, so I will not go. Now, these are the methods of seaweed cultivation, either the raft, monoline or tube net. And we are looking at all three of them. Next, please. In how to get on with, so seaweed value chain, this is important. And we are now looking at, I will not go into details because of time constraint, but we can see now that one is just getting the production, and then after the harvesting, how do we produce sap from wet seaweed, and how we get a seaweed powder, then agar and carrageenan, how do we look at, and then biofertilizer. So all these things we have looked at it in detail. And the idea is to use the self-help, women groups to get into it, and it will also be a huge employment provider. Next, please. This is what have been, there are many bodies. The Department of Fisheries is working with very many research institutes. The National Fisheries Development Board has been funding it. which is with us, the Department of Fisheries, has the National Fisheries Development Board, which has been giving funding support to various organizations like the CSMCRI, which is in Bhavnagar in Gujarat, the Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute, the National Institute of Technology, and various state government departments. So about 5.5 crores funding has gone into it, but we want to scale it up to 100 times. So we have now 650 crore spending in the next 5 years. This is what we are trying to say, that we have 100-fold increase is what we are looking at it, which is challenging. So it is a collaborative effort which we can do either for training and demonstration, and for establishment of seaweed processing units, for making the seed banks, and so on and so forth. And we are primarily looking at Gracilaria and Capophagus, which are the dominant species in terms of commercial application. Next, please. If you look at it, the NFDB funded, we have been doing that again, a lot of trainings and 1,600 beneficiaries. This is in Tamil Nadu. There is a FIMSUL project which looked at it, and there are a lot of learnings and a lot of valuable inputs have come for this. Next, please. The Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, as some of you may be aware, is a 20,000 crore scheme, and for the next 5 years. And this is a game changer as far as the fisheries development in the country is concerned. And this looks at the entire value chain. And we are now looking at a target of 640 crores investment in the next 5 years. And this will increase the opportunities for increasing the income of seaweed farmers in a very big way. Next, please. So under this, we want to enhance the production and productivity of the seaweed aquaculture. And we also want to look at the entire value chain and look at industrial product diversification to meet the domestic demand. And also this will reduce dependence on imports, which will be part of our Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Also, we want to promote seaweed as a viable and sustainable livelihood and among the communities, especially women, and to establish an institutional mechanism in research and development in the seaweed farming and value chain, and the mechanism for effective transfer of technology. These are the broad objectives. Next, please. So if you look at the SWOT, and I'll not go into details because I'm sure the speakers later will cover each of it in great detail, but there are huge opportunities. So we have been mindful of the weaknesses. We are looking at what the strengths are and what the threats are. And accordingly, we have come up with a very detailed strategy. And this is what I'll very quickly try to cover. Next, please. What are the broad strategy? We are looking at intensive efforts to prioritize formation and promotion of the farmer producer organization. Basically, the women self-help groups will be upgraded to become a producer organization, support to cooperatives and women SSGs, because this is a cooperative-led initiative. So this fits into the self-help groups getting upgraded and women self-help cooperatives, and how we can formalize it. And then this we have done recently when we visited Tamil Nadu last week along with the Honorable Minister. We interacted with them, and this is what will ensure area expansion, ensuring quality seed supply. It will also ensure the enhancing R&D in seaweed farming and value chain, the market promotion, capital investment will come in, utilization of existing skill and labor, and integrated cluster-based. It has to be an integrated cluster-based approach. Then only we can scale it up in a big way. Next, please. So what we have been looking at various ways where organizing workshops like what we are having now for outreach and enhancing so all these things are now getting done in each way. And this is the roadmap for the next 5 years. The idea is to look at 11.2 lakh tons of production. And we have done a year-wise incremental mapping of it, state-wise also. Next, please. Next, we'll show how we can look at, state-wise. Each state has to come in, and we have given production targets for the state, and we are working with each state and union territory to ensure that these targets, because what is very important is to ensure production to begin with. And after that will come the value chain development. So this is essential, and this is where quality seed material, all that has been tied up. And this is what we want to do. Next, please. So these are the funds allocated for the states, and this is for seaweed cultivation as well as additional investment for interventions like seed banks, genetic improvement programs for high yield cultivars, seaweed parks. This is what we want to establish. Next, please. So there is a convergence that we need to do. And this is what, again, several departments, several things are being planned, and we have got a detailed strategy, because it is not just one department. It is a, we have to work with everybody who has interest in it, with the industry, with the cooperatives, and make sure that this happens. And ultimately, some of it will be, so this is what we have planned. As I said, time constraint doesn't let me go into details of the thing. I will just quickly now end with a couple of, next please, to tell you what we have done. We have done Tamil Nadu, we have sanctions, present sanctions are being shown. What are the, total numbers? We have been, looking at it, and proposals from research institutes are under there. So you can see now a huge scaling up in terms of what has happened in the last few months, because the Pradhan Mantri Sampada Yojana was just launched a few months back. And we have, this I am highlighting that element of seaweed out of that huge program. And this will help in terms of establishing seaweed culture rafts and monoline, and so on, banks for seaweed and so on. So we are now also looking at various states and taking on their lessons earlier and using it to scale it up in a big way. Next, please. So these are some pictures of our recent visit on 23rd, a few days back. We were in the Rameshwaram Mandapam area, and we launched the program along with the Honorable Minister. And you can see that some pictures being taken. So this we interacted with the cultivators, and it was very, very useful. It gave us a lot of energy and insight that there's a huge possibility of development. We are feeling that this is something we can do, and we are on the right track. Next, please. So I will, next, please. So these are again some, a visit to Aqua Agri Seaweed Processing Plant. And I'm happy that Mr. Aviram Seth is also there. He will give you details, because what is needed is to have a market. And that is why I'm also happy that IFCO, Dr. Avasthi is there. And he will, elaborate, because very important is to ensure that there is good market and there's a good, in fact, it was a happy augury that the price which the people who are getting out of it, they are getting more and more of it, which will attract many large number of women to come into this area. And this will help in employment generation, and a livelihood, efforts will be taken care of. So this is a very big development in that, because we are looking at a potential of almost 4 lakh women getting into this. So this is a very big number, and that is what we are saying, that market development and the firms have to come into it, and ultimately money has to be made. Then only you see it will be sustainable and viable. Next, please. So this is the way forward, and last 2 slides are, which I'm sure will be developed by later speakers in more detail. The major decisions were to enhance seed availability, and multiple number of seed banks will be taken up in maritime states. And for key species, promoting indigenous species is an important area, like native species like Gracilaria edulis, Gelidelia acarosa, or Sargassum, etc. Permission for natural collection from coastal waters, and then support intensive convergence. This is very important, because we felt that each of them are doing their bit in their own silos. We need to converge it, let them work together, network them. And this is what we are doing under this. So this is a national initiative, and everybody is adding to the whole effort. Next, please. So the last slide tells you about the action towards, there are issues which we are looking at it, and enhancing training and capacity building, popularizing seaweed-based products is very important. So feasibility of that in various areas, whether it is in, human consumption or nutraceuticals, variety of things can be put to use. Development of seaweed farming in island territories of Lakshadweep and Andamans and Nicobar is being looked at. Entrepreneurship in seaweed farming, which is the what we are discussing today, we are asking states to identify such entrepreneurs and support them with technical and financial resources. And this will be also funded through the Department of Fisheries and the NFDB. And support to industries, the MSME ministry also will support this. So if you see, the whole ecosystem is what we are targeting. And we are hoping that all this will add up to what we are targeting in terms of production, in terms of employment generation. And this is something which we all feel will take us forward. So I will now like to end here because of the time constraint, and I hope that this webinar and the detailed discussion that on each aspect of the issue will be discussed in the uh, forthcoming by the speakers, and that will be very useful for all of us to take it forward. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'd like to thank NCDC for taking the initiative, and we'll be discussing this issue off and on again, and ensuring that the target set for us, the kind of vision that we have for development is realized. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan sir. It is really good that you have outlined how the federal government is pushing seaweed in India. And we have with us the Ministry of Food Processing Industries Additional Secretary, our dear friend, Mr. Manoj Joshi. I'll request him to speak on this occasion because we have a large number of industry participants from India and abroad. So I request Mr. Manoj Joshi.
Thank you, Mr. Nayak, and good morning to all of you. It was wonderful listening to Mr. Rajiv Ranjan explaining about what they are doing on the seaweed cultivation and promoting cultivation, and our ministry and our schemes coming right after where they lead. And I think unless the way he explained, unless it is taken in an integrated way, it's difficult to develop, which has happened for a lot of sectors in India. We either promoted the cultivation part, but did not bother so much about processing and marketing, and left the farmers or producers in a problem. So I think that is something we need to really avoid in seaweed cultivation, because we are close to nothing at present and want to grow big. So we really need to work in few clusters to begin with, where we also develop processing and marketing along with the cultivation. And we have a scheme called PM Formalization of Micro Enterprises Scheme, which fits really well into what has been outlined by Mr. Rajiv Ranjan for seaweed cultivation. We provide support with a 35% subsidy, with the rest coming as a bank loan to individual entrepreneurs, to self-help groups, to cooperatives, to farmer producer organizations, to set up common processing facilities or incubation centers, support for marketing. All of that is part of our PMFME scheme. So say for individual enterprises, we provide a subsidy for micro enterprises, which are less than a 200,000 US dollar turnover, or about 1 crore rupees investment. So we are very small enterprises. So we provide 35% subsidy limited to 10 lakh rupees or 1 million rupees. While there is no such limit for SHGs or cooperatives or farmer producer organizations, so we do provide 35% grant for them, and with a bank loan linkage. So it should help a lot of these groups. Similarly, we provide some small grant for working capital for self-help group members also, and could set up incubation centers or common processing facilities in the areas which Ministry of Fisheries or NCDC identify for seaweed cultivation and processing. So we also are tying up with a lot of research institutions on various parts of food processing industry. So in seaweed cultivation, if Ministry of Fisheries and NCDC have tied up already with research institutions, we would get into that and provide support. Yeah, the market is pretty large, but yeah, cultivation is a problem in India. So this is one area for marketing tie-up. Also, we can work with NCDC and various groups to support for marketing with the retail chains and with the developing a brand or a good packaging and other things. So they also will provide a lot of support. But yeah, we probably considering the level of seaweed cultivation in India, probably we need to identify a few pockets, say to begin with 5, 10 pockets, and focus on that. If we spread our energy too much into various areas, probably the result won't be as good. So if Ministry of Fisheries can guide us as well as to NCDC to focus, say, 5 or 10 areas, and we really make them as a success stories. I think that's what works. So if there are a few people where they make good money, I think a lot of other people follow. But if they lose money, then it doesn't grow that fast. So making few success stories with cultivation along with processing and marketing and packaging as a package, we work it out. It would really work well. And we are working with in all the states, in all the southern coastal states where this opportunity is there. So we would be there to support Ministry of Fisheries and NCDC in this endeavor. And cooperatives, by very nature, in this fits really well because a large number of small people involved and some sort of a common processing facility is required. So we have a MOU with NCDC to work on such cooperatives, and seaweed cultivation and processing could be one of the focus areas in that. And I really thank Mr. Sandeep Naik and the Fisheries Ministry to have organized this meeting and given an opportunity to focus on an area which is a very niche area, and somehow we didn't really focus on this in India, though large potential exists in terms of production and market. I, I will stop here and thank NCDC and Ministry of Fisheries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. I have a special request to Dr. Chopin. Dr. Avasthi wants to speak just for 5 minutes now. Can I, with your permission, Dr. Chopin, can I request Dr. Avasthi to speak for 5 minutes?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, Dr. Avasthi sir, kindly come in to speak about the market linkage of the seaweed products, maybe for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naik Saab, Mr. Chairman, distinguished participant, and distinguished speaker. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on it. You see, about 5 years back, we started looking in our country the importance of seaweed and its use in agriculture, especially as a biostimulant. And we came across the CSI and CSM Sarai Bhavnagar has already patented the product, and that patented product is being used as a biostimulant for the crop, which carries 11 to 13% increase in the yield. And we observed that AquaAgri is one company which is in this field, but they have had some limitations. So we decided to join them and become their 50% partner in AquaAgri. And since then, I can tell you that the journey has been smooth. It has really taken off very well by the Pharma, and it has created such a increase in the yield that the farmers are very willingly buying both seaweed as liquid biostimulant and also as granules, which we are doing with a phosphocalcium gypsum, which also carries calcium with it, so it provides additional support to agriculture. What I was trying to say is that as an industry and as a farmer organization, IFCO is fully owned by the farmer. We have 40 million as farmer as our members, 37,000 cooperatives are our members. So we have a long reach in the country into far and all corners of the country. So we had that advantage, and AquaAgri had the advantage of doing additional research and providing the giving adequate compensation to the farmers to do the seaweed cultivation. The soluble product which we are selling has 20% seaweed extracts, which contains carbohydrates, inorganic salt, and other inherent nutrients like vitamins, plant growth, regulators like auxin, cytokinin, and ghrelin, betaines, mannitol, etc. And it contains a natural and organic origin both. I also must take this opportunity to thank the Government of India for launching these products, and especially the Minister. The Prime Minister's vision of developing this sector has been very useful to the fishermen as well as the farmer, and especially Minister and the Secretary, Honorable Secretary, Federal Secretary, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan. They together went to Aquagri plant recently and interacted with the farmers and also saw the manufacturing facility. And I'm very happy to say this that now we are going to expand the production capacity in those plants. The advantage of biostimulants, a lot of speakers are there, but I would say we have observed this safe and eco-friendly. No phototoxic effect have been observed in agriculture. Acts as metabolic enhancer, it stimulates crop growth and development. It provides higher crop yield. We have observed crop yield going up by 8% to 15%, enhanced physiological efficiency, improved quality. That's very important because the crop quality, when it improves the keeping quality of the product. Enhances stress tolerability because then even if there's a flood or a drought, it has the capacity to withstand that stress. And both liquid and granular form have become very, I would say, extremely liked by the farmer and become very popular. And it is different doses where it can be done. And I think I will leave it to Dr. Abhiram Seth to take up those matters more in detail. Since I have just 5 minutes, I thought I'll just mention to it that it's a kind of collaboration which starts from the producer to the consumer and goes through the industry to the cooperatives directly to the farmer's field. These are the unique way by which I think we can make these kind of product successful in the country. I must take this opportunity to thank again NACSAB for giving me opportunity to present my point of view, and thank you all for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Avasti. Dr. Avasti leads the largest cooperative in the world, not in India, but in the world. Just been evaluated by World Cooperative Monitor. It is the #1 cooperative in the world among the top 300. Congratulations, Dr. Avasti, for leading such a big organization. Now I request our coordinator of the webinar, Professor Salin, to take over.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Naikji. And today, I think we have seen the background of the webinar because the backdrop and the big potential. And we have a big man behind the seaweed development for several years. And Professor Thierry Chopin, he's a professor at the University of New Brunswick in Canada. And he has so many years of experience integrating seaweed in the aquaculture systems and highlighted the potential and with a global reach. And I welcome Dr. Thierry Chopin. Please give your maybe you can introduce a bit of the research work and the extension work that you're doing, and please share the presentation.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's almost 2 o'clock in the morning on the east coast of Canada, so I will try to stay awake. So what I would like to do for this morning is to talk about seaweeds, but from a different angle. I would like to talk about seaweed as a key component of integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, or IMTA, which are providing important ecosystem services, and we should put a value on these ecosystem services. It seems that I don't have the control of. Okay. Yeah, so there is presently a renewed interest in seaweed mariculture, which has been triggered by their cultivation in integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, or IMTS system. The emerging understanding of the ecosystem services they provide, and the development of novel use and applications. So I would like to explain a little what is integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. Yeah, I don't know if I have the control. Okay, we try. So initially we thought integrated multi-trophic aquaculture was made of 3 components: the fed aquaculture component with finfish, and 2 extractive aquaculture component with the organic suspension extractive component with shellfish, and the inorganic component with seaweeds. And the way it works is wow, I don't know. It seems I have to push the button many times. Do I have the control?
You can yeah, you can try enter the button every time, so it works. The
okay
will come. Yeah.
Okay. So when but do you have control, or do I have control?
Sir, it is being controlled from here, sir.
Pardon me?
I am controlling here from here, sir.
Oh, I cannot control?
No, sir.
You can tell next. So the Nikhil, Mr. Nikhil will do it. You just tell next.
Okay. So anyway, when you add nutrients to the systems that create a nutrient zone, and you can see that there is different element. The small particulate organic matter that doesn't go very far, so you need to put your shellfish quite close. Then you have the dissolved inorganic nutrient like nitrogen, dissolved phosphorus, dissolved carbon. Next. Next. Okay, so the dissolved inorganic nutrient. Oh my God, what's no? So I cannot control it from my side.
Sir, actually, यहाँ से share किया. I have shared from here.
Next करके चलो ना.
But you disable participant screen sharing. Can I have the screen sharing?
Okay, I am stopping here. You can start. You can share your screen now.
But you have disabled my. You have to enable me to participate.
You can share, sir. Can you try?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. So we were at, yes. Okay, here we are. So we were at dissolving organic nutrients. They move farther away, so you need to put your seaweeds not as close as the shellfish from the fish. And also we realize there are two other components. You have the large particulate organic material that go faster to the bottom. And when you have a lot of shellfish, they also release feces and pseudo feces, and that also go to the bottom. So you need what we call the deposit extractive aquaculture component made of invertebrates like sea urchin, sea cucumbers, lobsters. On the fifth component, and in generally in marine biology, we don't know much about it, but it's an important one. It's a mineralizing aquaculture component with microbes, bacteria. And all this activity at the bottom, this bioturbation, regenerate more dissolving organic nutrients, which are available to the seaweeds. So here it's the full IMTA system. You don't have to have always the 5 components. You can have 2, 3 components, 5 if you can. But definitely we want to spend more time here today on the inorganic component of IMTA, the seaweeds. And you can see here, we are cultivating kelps in the Bay of Fundy, Eastern Canada. So until now, seaweeds, yeah, okay. Until now, seaweeds and other extractive species have been valued only for their biomass and food trading values. But we have to change our approach. We also need to value them for the ecosystem services they provide, along with the increase in consumer trust and societal and political license to operate that they give to the aquaculture industry, and that within a circular economy framework. So what are these ecosystem services provided by seaweeds? First one is, we just mentioned, seaweeds are excellent nutrient scrubber, especially of dissolved nitrogen, phosphorus, and carbon. And also what is important with IMTA, you don't need to add fertilizer, you don't need to add agrochemicals, because the fed components, the fish, are providing the fertilization. But for that, we will have also to change our way of thinking, because so far we have always been talking about nutrient as waste and byproduct, but now we should consider them as co-product from one species, which can be used as recovered fertilizer and feed resources and also energy for other species, which then become additional crop, providing economic diversification, while the bioremediation of coastal nutrification is taking place. So this idea is we have to change, instead of calling waste, it's just, we all know what is waste for somebody is gold for somebody else. What is waste for one species is very good opportunity for another species. Also something that is very almost too obvious, but it's important. Seaweeds do not need to be irrigated. Seaweeds are already in the water. So at the present time, when water is becoming such an issue in different parts of the world, not having to irrigate field of seaweed is important. You don't need more arable soil and land transformation. You don't need deforestation. And seaweed can also be used for habitat restoration. Seaweed also in an aquaculture system are the components that provide oxygen, while the other animal and microbial component consume oxygen. And also seaweed can sequester carbon dioxide. I put sequester in quotation mark because it's not sequestering at geological scale, but it's sequestering temporary until there is another use. But temporarily, the seaweed can contribute to slowing down global warming. They can also, by sequestering carbon dioxide, contribute to reducing coastal acidification. I much prefer to talk about coastal acidification instead of ocean acidification. I don't think we will never be able in India, in the Philippines, in China, and in Canada, enough seaweeds to change the pH of an entire oceans, but at the coastal level, we can have an impact. And how does it work? Is when we have carbon dioxide in the plus water, plus the carbonates, the problem is form bicarbonates, and these bicarbonates are not available for the shellfish on the coral reef to develop. And that's the big problem we have at the present time. But in good old chemistry, if you reduce an element like CO2, the equilibrium should be reversed. And as a matter of fact, bicarbonate should go back to carbonate, and carbonates are then bioavailable to shellfish to make their shelf and coral to grow more coral reefs. So that's what we have to do, and seaweed can play a role in coastal acidification. From an economic perspective, also, the IMTA multi-crop diversification approach, when you are growing fish on seaweeds, on invertebrates, I think it could be an economic risk mitigation and a management option to address pending climate change and coastal acidification impact, and which means that you will increase the resilience of the aquaculture sector. Basically, it's this diversification is well known. In agriculture, you should diversify. On the stock exchange, you should diversify. Well, in aquaculture, you should also diversify. And that's what I said to the salmon grower here. The big aquaculture sector in Eastern Canada is salmon. And I told them, please don't put all your salmon eggs in the same basket. That's exactly what we have to do in aquaculture. We have also to look at seaweed in terms of increasing the societal and the political license to operate. Like, for example, if we combine seaweed cultivation and wind farm in kind of integrated food and renewable energy park, at the same time, these two activities, by combining their effort, can reduce their cumulative footprint. And I think that will be important to get more societal acceptance of both activities, the wind farm and aquaculture. So the value of these important services to the environment and consequently to the society are, however, never accounted for in any budget sheet, in any business plans of seaweed farm and seaweed company. Because again, the seaweeds are being valued only for their biomass and food trading value. But let's try to give a value to these services. Let's try to calculate the economic value of just the nutrient bioremediation. I cited many ecosystem services, but let's focus on one, the bioremediation services provided by the total world aquaculture production. So we will have to look at the value of these ecosystem services. First, they will have to be recognized. Secondly, they will have to be given a value, accounted for, and hopefully when we have done that, we will be able to use them as financial and regulatory incentive tools. So if we look at the seaweed industry in the world, it's 32.4 million tons. It's worth 13.3 billions. If I look at the average composition of seaweed, it's 0.35% nitrogen, 0.04% phosphorus, and 3% carbon. And if I look at how much it costs, for example, in a wastewater treatment facility to remove these nitrogen, phosphorus, and carbon, for nitrogen, it's around 10 to 30 US dollar per kilo. For phosphorus, it's around $4 per kilo. And for carbon, it's around 25, 30 US dollar but per ton. That's very important. Nitrogen and phosphorus, that's per kilo. For carbon, it's per ton. So there is a factor 1,000 here. And keep that in mind. I will come back to it in a few minutes. So if I do the calculation, the ecosystem services of the entire seaweed aquaculture production is at least between 1.2 billion to 3.4 billion dollars, US dollar, which is compared to the 13.3 billion, as much as 26.2% of their present commercial value. And that is never reported in any business plan for many companies, and it's never recognized also by governments as doing ecosystem services for society. So it's about time we develop a system of nutrient trading credits. And I talk about nutrient trading credits because a lot of people talk about carbon tax, carbon credit. Everything is about carbon. But as a matter of fact, I would like to bring to your attention that you can make much more money with nutrient trading credits than with carbon trading credits. If we do the calculation for nitrogen, it's between 1.1 and 3.4 billion US dollar. Phosphorus is around 51.8 million. Carbon is only 29.15 million, and that's because of carbon, the value of the tax or the credit was per ton, not per kilo. So as a matter of fact, we spend a lot of time talking about carbon. We should spend more time talking about nitrogen and phosphorus in the coastal environment. So we need to recognize this NTC, and that will be very important to give a fair price to seaweed and extractive aquaculture, but we need to consider, if we want the true value of seaweed aquaculture, we need to consider and give a value to these ecosystem services. Then they could be used as financial and regulatory incentive tools to encourage single species aquaculturists to contemplate innovative practices such as IMTA as a viable option to their current practices. So hopefully that will lead to change aquaculture practices. But IMTA is more than a story of nutrient, and seaweeds are more than seafood. And really what we have to wonder is, what do we do with all these seaweeds that we are cultivating in different parts of the world? And again, we will need to change our attitude, our business model, because so far it's a linear approach, is one species, one process, one product, as we have done so often with fisheries and aquaculture product. But we have to change our approach and move toward integrated sequential biorefinery, where we have one species, several processes, several products. And again, no more byproducts that way, but co-product, and we are back to think in terms of circular economy. So how does integrated sequential biorefinery works? We have the biomass, we harvest, dewatering, pretreatment, transportation, everything go to the biorefinery, a big black box, but you know, a lot of black box generally are red or orange. So that's why my black box is that color. Separation, fractionation, sequential processing. And basically we got two types of product. We get the bio-based high value molecule on the low value commodity energy carrying molecule. The high value molecules, generally the price is good, but the volume is not necessarily that big because of the different markets compared to the low value commodity like biofuel and everything. But generally the price per ton is very low. So as a matter of fact, we have to decide what we want to produce. It's a compromise between the price you can get and the volume you can sell. So because the market and the added value of seaweed products vary extremely. If we look at the value, the volume, the biofuel, biodiesel, biogas, bioalcohol, it's less than $1 per kilo. And frankly, I am not interested in developing so much seaweed for biofuel. I cannot produce my seaweed for less than $1 a kilo. So I am more interested in more lucrative product. Biomaterial, biocomposite, and adhesive. It's a developing market. We don't know exactly what could be the price. When you talk about agrochemicals, biopolymers, animal feed, it's between $1 and $20 per kilo. Fine chemicals, ingredient, human food, it's already a better price, between $20 and $200 per kilo. Nutraceutical, cosmeceutical, $500 to $1,000 per kilo. On the best price you can get, but it's very small market. It's the pharmaceutical, the bioactive, which you can sell for more than $1,000 a kilo. But again, the tonnage is not that big. So again, it's you see my picture is like a kind of pyramids. It's you have to think, okay, what seaweed do I want to cultivate? How easy it is to cultivate? What is my market? What will be my volume of sales? And then you decide what is the best compromise in your case. So I would say, to conclude, that in recent conferences, a lot of people talk about blue growth, blue economy, blue revolution. However, we should also recognize that it's need to become greener. So when you combine blue and green together, it's about time we talk about the turquoise growth, the turquoise economy, the turquoise revolution, because frankly, how many times is the water that blue? Not so many times. A lot of time, the water is turquoise, a mixture of green and blue. And on that, I will say thank you very much. And if my Hindi is approximately correct, I will say Hapka Baut Dhanyavad. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Chopin. That is very interesting concept that you have put forward to move towards a circular economy that is more based on nutrient trading credits and highlighting the ecosystem services that seaweeds present and contribute to the circular economy. So may I now ask Sandeep Kumar Naikji to invite Ms. Blossom Kochar.
Thank you, Professor Salim. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to invite Dr. Blossom Kochar. When I spoke to her a couple of days back to speak on this webinar, she was extremely happy, and this is an occasion where I have to highlight that she comes with several decades of experience in working in the industry, and she holds a double doctorate in aromatherapy. She manufactures her own range of aromatherapy-based beauty products under the brand name Blossom Kochar Aroma Magic, and she uses seaweeds to great perfection and adding value. In fact, I must mention here that NCDC is with the support of the Department of Fisheries, Government of India, and also the Association of NEDAC, would like to set up an incubation center where industry and the entrepreneurs, their connection with the young graduates and things like that across India will be set up. We look forward to working with you, Dr. Blossom Kochar, in future also. Welcome, Dr. Blossom.
Thank you. Thank you. I just like to put this like this. Okay. So good morning, everyone. And it's a real pleasure to be here and to listen to this, this wonderful talk. And I would really like to congratulate the Mr. Sandeep and the organizations and NCDC, and of course the fisheries and the other organizations for holding the seminar. I think it is very, very important at this stage. And I'm going to talk, since I've been manufacturing and into cosmetics for a long time, not only cosmetics, beauty, spa, wellness, we have been using, of course, a lot of natural products and organic products, and also seaweed to a certain extent. And I'd like to just tell you a story how I got into seaweed. Like I was visiting Chennai, I remember, and I found we were doing cosmetics with other natural ingredients. And I visited Chennai and we were by the sea, and I found these ladies working on the seaweed. And when I looked at their hands were flawless. They were a wonderful coloring. They had a wonderful coloring. There was no aging. So that got me thinking there must be something in this seaweed, because the others, their hands had a problem. They had pigmentation on the hands of other people. And here there was no pigmentation. The hands and the older ladies, their hands were beautiful. So I said, there must be something in this seaweed. So let's look into it. And of course, when I went into it, I found that, they have a lot of proteins, they have a lot of polysaccharides, saccharides, they have fatty acids, they have amino acids, and they also have these primary, and this thing, they have pigments, they have vitamins, sterols, and other biochemical agents in them. So I said, this is fantastic. Now let's see how it is going to work in my product. And so, and of course, the other thing I found, it's natural and it works with essential oils, because of the smell. So, nobody would like a fishy smell so much. So when we use the essential oils along with it, it was really fantastic and gave a really wonderful effect. So we found that, of course, I used it I used it for, for photo, like in sunscreens, because it has excellent photo protection. Then I used it in hyperpigmentation, because that was where I saw these women's hands. And I found that it has the thing called tyrosine, that really, it's an inhibitor. They have an inhibitors in that. So it stops this melanin from forming, which was very, very good and wonderful. The best, and of course, antioxidant, it has these wonderful antioxidant properties. And the best thing I found, it has anti-aging properties, which is fantastic. It has these peptides in them. It brightens the skin. It has hyaluronic acid, which is really very, very good. And it also, has the cell rejuvenation, which is wonderful. So a lot of my things, like the firming product of mine, which I use, called a firming gel, which we put on, and then we use a machine called, a galvanic machine. And in 3 minutes, you can have a lift. And you'll find the lady will look about 5 to 10 years younger with that, which was really amazing. And I still use it. A lot of my packs now, because of the whitening agent in it, lightening agent, we use it with vitamin C. So and these seaweeds themselves, as you all will know, the scientists and things, they have the vitamin C, they have A, E, and they have B complex also, so it is wonderful for the skin, because I really believe that what you put on your skin, you should be able to eat, and what you eat, you should be able to put on your skin. And that is what is going to make a lady, or anyone, whether it's a gent or a lady, anyone, really good. It also has phenols, propylene phenols, which is wonderful for this it has a high concentration of that. And so that helps the anti-aging of the skin. So that is good. And it has a very excellent moisturizing effect. So, it could be used as a gel. And also, of course, we mix it with essential oils of neroli and sandalwood, which gives it that wonderful, moisturizing effect. And we say, put it on overnight and sleep, like an overnight pack. And you will find that the skin will get beautifully hydrated because of this hyaluronic effect. And it's really wonderful that we've been working with these products for a long time. And I find that it helps the skin a great deal. And really, I know abroad we have a lot of firms that have been doing this. In India, it is not, it is still in its nascent stage. And I think if we can take it forward and really show the benefits and give the benefits of of the seaweed, it could really become something that is going to go forward. And I feel with all this that's happening, with the government that's coming in, and with everyone that's working with it, and of course with the NCDC, I feel this could really become a big thing, because once everybody know how to use it, and of course we use the bioactives of it, so how to use it, how to use the bioactives, how to go into it, it's going to become a wonderful thing, because it helps the skin, it helps the hair. Let's not just talk about the skin. The hair is also a big part. It helps in falling hair, which is wonderful. It helps in keeping your hair, the dry hair, really good and moist. So it works wonderful. And I feel there is a huge future of of seaweed cosmetics in India, and I think all over the world where they are going through, because this is natural, and now everyone are going to natural and organic, and I think there could be nothing better than this. So I think we should take this forward and go ahead forward. And Mr. Sandeep, I'd love to work with your organization and see how we can go with it. And of course, get more people into this cosmetics and making it so that it can really become something. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krocher. Thank you for sharing your ideas and thoughts. We have a great future ahead working with each other for the cooperatives, for the farmers and the community which are involved in seaweeds. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll now request Mr. Aviram Seth from AquaAgri. He is one of the early pioneers in the seaweed industry. He is the managing director of AquaAgri. He is doing a great job in the coastal areas and improving the livelihoods of people in the coastal areas. Particularly, he is working with the self-help groups. Our Honorable Minister, Federal Minister of India Fisheries Department, he visited, as the Secretary told in his speech. He was initially working with PepsiCo, and PepsiCo had a project with the seaweeds and working in water management and waste disposal. He has proved that the seaweeds can be a very viable business, and with the partnership of the largest cooperative of the world, IFCO, he has proved it. Welcome, Mr. Seth, and to share your ideas, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Naik Saab. It's really a pleasure to be presenting my work here. And I am delighted that cooperative sector has now taken interest in cultivation. And the way we saw a turning point in our business once we partnered with IFCO, I'm pretty sure once the cultivation activity is taken up by cooperative sector, it will see the same kind of a growth trajectory as we have seen for our business. So I'll just share the importance of seaweed cultivation has been recognized by the leaders of our country. Our Prime Minister at multiple occasions has been encouraging the scientific community to promote seaweed cultivation. Its importance was equally recognized by late Dr. Kalam also. Basically, if you look at the key features of seaweed industry, it is an extremely viable model for all the stakeholders. If you look at the cultivators, it provides an opportunity for people who don't have any land holding with limited amount of investment, which in today's circumstances, with various government schemes, can easily be made available for people to take up this as a livelihood initiative without disturbing or relocating them from their local habitat. And particularly women can take up this activity, which gives them an income which is significantly higher than what the minimum wages are provide them. One second. Into another part which was already covered by Dr. Chopin was that it sequesters nutrients which wash down into the sea, at least in the coastal areas. It sequesters carbon and mitigate the impact, adverse impact of climate change. Its products are used by multiple industries, and seaweed-based biostimulants provide crop resistance against abiotic strips and boost productivity. And now, based on the latest work which has been done by the science system, we believe the next big opportunity is in the area of animal nutrition. And we are very excited on embarking upon this dimension. This was the video which I am told will be played at the end of the presentation. Basically, if you look at the domain, and which was pointed out by the earlier speaker, that you can move in a range of products from low value to high value. You can produce hydrocolloids. That's the way we began our journey. Then we went into biostimulants and are now looking at animal nutrition, and going forward would branch out into organic chemicals and nutraceuticals, and have done some fair degree of work in developing edible packaging options. Basically, we had, in the last 10, 12 years, we have been working on it. We have had ups and downs, but after we joined hands with IFCO, the business has only been on the way up, and the product is really being widely accepted by the farmers. And as we speak, we are expanding our agriculture products range. Going forward, we partnered with the science system under the Nimitli scheme and have validated formulations for application of seaweed formulations, both for cattle and poultry. And the great part is, in today's times, it has been conclusively demonstrated that the immune modulation response, both in cattle and poultry, has a significant improvement if they are given small quantities of seaweed formulations added to their diet. We are also now in the second stage of developing higher range of value-added food solutions made out of carrageenan, because industry actually looks for a ready-made solution which provides certain properties in their food products range. They are not really looking for plain vanilla carrageenan or the simple hydrocolloids. If you look at our performance versus national and international benchmarks, the secretary clearly pointed out that in this large sector, we have an insignificant presence, but under the goals which have been set by the Fisheries Ministry, we have long way to travel in the next 5 years. And opportunity in this domain can be seen by the fact that seaweed industry-based biostimulants industry is about 2,200 crores, which is likely to grow to 8,000 crores, over 8,000 crores by 2030. But 75% of the seaweed-based biostimulants sold in India are imported from North America and Europe. Given our large coastline, this is clearly a great opportunity for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, it's very good to have clearly defined targets, but I think there are certain steps which are very, very critical, which we must take to ensure that we achieve what we are setting out to do. First is, we need to ensure continuous availability of high quality planting material for the cultivators. Towards this end, we need to establish it can't be done under a project mode. It has to be done on a corporate mode. And we believe setting up a Section 25 public-private partnership company, leveraging the fisheries department, the ICAR and CSIR institutions, particularly CMFRI and CSMCRI, this could be an area which could be easily achieved. We are already working with CSMCRI towards this end. And Dr. Nanisha, who's going to be speaking later in the webinar, is providing technical know-how for this initiative. We need to, we have heard a lot about the beneficial impact of seaweed cultivation. In India, we still are not allowed to do it in Gulf areas because of some concerns expressed by the Ministry of Environment. But today, we are happy to say pilots are expected to start shortly, jointly being run by CSMCRI, CMFRI, and NCSCM to evaluate its impact. And I'm pretty sure this will open the path for rapid expansion in the Gulf areas. Other important aspect is we need to get varietal diversification. And though there are 3 major areas open for cultivation, which can be cultivated in tropical areas, the species, we need to also get spinosym, which is another good contender for being cultivated in our coastal waters. We need to continue work with the scientific institutions by leveraging the available science to improve the viability of our cultivars going forward. We need to have cultivation models for land-based cultivation. A lot of work has gone on in this area, and we need to move further on it and enlarge the scope of creating products, as the speakers have pointed out, for human nutrition, for which investment and some research is needed. Seaweed site mapping and pilot study has already been undertaken, and now we need to do pilots in these areas to determine their viability. We also need to put in a discipline in collection sites and identify and enlarge the collection sites for seaweed in other domains so that the biomass availability can be improved for the industry. There's also an opportunity to do deep sea cultivation, and for this, infrastructure for pilots can be funded by the Fisheries Department under the scheme announced by them, so that we could get higher growths, because in these areas, there is higher water motion and better nutrient exchange. And we need to leverage the cooperative network and model for propelling the growth of seaweed cultivation. We need to encourage and support adoption of seaweed-based nutrients in dairy, poultry, fish to improve their immunity, reduce mortality, and increase productivity. You know, hydrocolloids is a very big industry, but they're largely focused on Western solutions. They can actually be used very effectively for our dairy products and confectionaries, whereby you can reduce the fat content and improve the productivity. And this is an area which our science system should take up on priority. We also need to work on food fortification using seaweeds, which are acceptable and useful for Indian palate. This is all I had to share. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Seth. You have really added the dimension of the future of research and where we can move for bringing better value to the industry in the Indian context. And also you have pointed out how successful you have been in partnering with our premier scientific institutions. We have also in this panel, you might have seen the premium scientific institutions of Vietnam, Philippines, apart from Canada, which Dr. Terry Chopin has already spoken. Now it is my privilege to welcome Ms. Kavita Nehemia of SNAP Natural and Alginate India. Ms. Kavita holds an undergraduate degree in economics from the Stephens College, Delhi, and she has an MBA from Cornell, USA. She has previously worked in the financial services industry for more than 10 years, first with a microfinance company, where her role included designing financial products for urban poor, and later co-founding a fintech company, where as co-founder, her role scanned multiple functions. At SNAP, she oversees the marketing of agriculture and formulated products. She has also been working with the SSGs. She has a great interest in the seaweed industry. I request Ms. Kavita to share her ideas and how we can work together to bring prosperity to the farmers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nayak. It's really an honor for me to have the opportunity to present amongst such an esteemed panel and members here. I'm just going to share my screen. Sorry, I don't think I have access to share it. So if I think if Nikhil could share it, then
access is there to you. You are one of the co-hosts in this webinar.
Okay. I'm unable to. So if you could just share it, then that will be great.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll just start by introducing the company very briefly. So if you can just go to the next page. So we, our company is more than 40 years old. We were established in 1979, and today we're one of the largest processors of seaweed-based products in India. We collect sargassum from natural beds from the coastline at Ramanathapuram. So we collect about 15,000 metric tons of wet weeds per year. And in addition to this, we also do cultivate leukemia in the sea. We have about 500 rafts. We have two sites, one site that is near the seashore, which we use for the post-processing of the seaweed, and our 12-acre manufacturing site, which is in Tamil Nadu. Next, please. So we manufacture alginates, which is primarily used in food, pharmaceutical, and industrial grade. Carrageenan, which we primarily use for food. We do manufacture specialized blends for the dairy industry, and we also do manufacture biostimulants. Today, I'm going to mostly focus on our work in the food and pharmaceuticals, since we've had panelists speak about biostimulants and other industries. Next, please. So we started manufacturing textile grades alginate, but at that time, the main competitor is primarily Chinese material. We were unable to match the viscosity because the Chinese use laminaria weeds, but sargassum weeds, on the other hand, gives excellent gel strength, which makes it very ideal for food and pharmaceutical industry. Next, please. So the primary use of alginate in pharmaceutical industry, and where our clients are some of our prominent clients, so it is used for antacids. So what the alginate does is it creates a kind of a gel layer, a raft layer in your stomach, so that the acids don't reflux. And alginate is also known to have wound healing properties, so it's known to heal stomach ulcers. So for example, our product used to be used in Gaviscon, which Reckitt and Benckiser manufactures, and in several other antacids that are manufactured by Dr. Reddy's laboratory. It's also used in Crocin Advanced. So essentially what the alginate enables it to do is quick action, which enables the fever to reduce much faster, and it also soothes the stomach. It's also used in heart medication, where it's used as a sustained release drug. So Abbott uses our product for that. Apart from this, alginate is known to have several wound healing properties. It's used for things like dental impression material, and like Dr. Blossom had mentioned previously, it's used in cosmetics, so in face packs and other cosmetics. Next, please. Coming to the food industry, alginate's usage in food is it's primarily because it's a gelling agent. It really binds everything in the food together, so it prevents any separation or settling of any particles. So, for example, Nestle uses our product in ketchup, sauces. Dabur uses it in their real fruit juices. So it essentially prevents any separation of the pulp or the sugar or anything else, and it binds everything together. In ice cream, the main property is to prevent ice crystal formation, and it's used by various clients. Next, please. The other industrial grade alginates I won't talk much upon, but it's used in welding electrode, in rubber latex, and several other industrial uses. Next, please. Carrageenan, which is manufactured from red algae. So this is cultivated in the sea, and this is primarily used in food products. Next, please. So we primarily blend and create special formulations using carrageenan, and which is used in the khoya and in the dairy industry. So today we make blends for khoya, ice cream, milkshake, cheese, and other products like jellies, processed meats, puddings. So the primary property of carrageenan is really to improve texture, taste, to impart a uniform color and flavor. Carrageenan also reduces the protein denature of milk while heating, so it keeps a lot of the nutrient properties intact. It also does improve the yield because it has a better binding capacity. So internationally, actually, the food industry is the largest consumer of alginate and carrageenan. In India, however, we have traditionally used a lot of lower quality ingredients, and it requires a change in mindset to really increase the consumption in the food industry. Next, please. So before I end, I just wanted to spend a couple of seconds just talking about the seaweed farming and the impact that it has in the coastal communities. So a lot of the panelists previously have really spoken about the livelihoods and how we, how it really has a huge impact in the coastal communities. Next, please. So I wanted to just give you a brief description of the kind of people who do take up seaweed farming. They are primarily lower literate people. A lot of them are fisher folk who take up seaweed farming to diversify their livelihood. several women and SSGs who take up seaweed farming, and it is far more profitable than fishing. So they do take it up as an alternative livelihood. Next, please. So seaweed farming refers to both harvesting from the natural beds, which is based on the calendar, which is what sargassum and turbinaria collection is, and cultivation in the sea for capophytes. Next, please. So seaweed farming is a fairly labor-intensive process, so it generates employment at every level, and again, primarily for women. So if you look at the fisher folk, each boat that goes out for this collection of seaweed, each boat employs about 6 to 8 people. And there are several workers who you have to employ for drying, cleaning, sorting, harvesting of the weeds. And the earning per day can range between 500 to 700 rupees per day. So during season, for example, our company, we employ upwards of 2,000 people during the seasonal months. So it is a very profitable activity for them, and the coastal communities are they're interested. They are happy to do it because it is additional income for them. So it is definitely now up to us as industries and for the government to really push this effort so that we can develop the livelihoods of the coastal communities. Thank you. That's all I had today.
Thank you, Ms. Kavita.
Just wanted Dr. Nayak. नायक साहब,
Yeah.
वो वीडियो था जो सीवीड कल्टीवेशन का. It's a 1-minute video. If that can be played, it would be very useful. People will get a very good idea about the activity.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Kavita again. Now I request Professor Salim to take the privilege of introducing Dr. Nguyen from Vietnam.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we have the next speaker, Dr. Nguyen Van Nguyen. He's Deputy Director of the Research Institute for Marine Fisheries in Vietnam, which is the nodal agency for most of the marine fisheries research and development, particularly the seaweed farming. So he has a lot of experience working with the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in Vietnam. And most of his research and extension work is with the seaweed research. So may I have the privilege to invite Dr. Nguyen to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this very nice occasion where I can meet many of the people that I know just in the paper before. So can you see my screen?
Yeah, please make it the slide presentation mode, full screen, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I would like to very brief introduce my institute. So we are under the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. So we are the main advisor of the ministry for almost all aspects in fisheries and aquaculture. So fish stock assessment and fishing technology, post-harvest technology, biodiversity, marine environment, and of course aquaculture. And including seaweed. Let's have some very brief information about the natural resource of seaweed in Vietnam. We have some more than 3,000 kilometers of coastline and near a lot of islands and river mouths. So we have seaweed flora around 800 species, and around 100 species is of the economic value. And the total biomass is estimated to be around nearly 100,000 tons, and mainly sargassum. Regarding the cultivated species, we have 7 species at the moment. So 3 species of Gracilaria, which is in the brackish water, and Capaficus, 2 species, and the Icuma. And the Colepa is recently cultured for exports at the seafood. The total potential area is around nearly 30,000 hectares, but this is just a very rough estimate because it becomes rising because of a lot of the water before we used for stream, but these days it become environment is not good anymore, and it can be turned into the seaweed. And the cultivation is not very much, just around 10,000 hectares, which is much lower than before. Before we have much more than this. First is for the carrageenophyte. We have around the potential area is around 10,000. At the peak period, around 2007, we have around 1,500 hectares, but then it goes down a lot, and at the moment it's less than 600 hectares. And we have 3 species, 2 of the cotonine and one of the spinosum. And the main problem is the reducing is of the growth rate of the degradation of the seed, because all of these are imported from the Philippines, thanks to the Philippines, but for a long time, has been a long time we don't import again. So as you can see in the screen here. So the growth rate is going down quite a lot. Sorry. Gradually growing down, and at the moment it's at a very low growth rate, and also the poor market, because until recently we don't have factory. Just a few years ago, there's one enterprise set up a factory, but again we don't have raw material, so still playing around, and they are importing from the material from Indonesia. Oh, sorry, I don't know how. Okay. And realizing that problem, recently the government of Vietnam, particularly the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, they fund quite a lot of study. And one of that, if you maybe realize, Dr. Reddy, we had a visit to him, and he also visit us, and they advise us, and we success in tissue culture of Capaficus and Barrazi. And we are heading for applied in the wild with hope that it may restore or make the seed better, and we restore the growth rate. So we success it, but unfortunately we get quite a lot of seed, and was about to bring it to Pharma, and then the flood serious floods happened, and then now we have to start again. So it's the new seed has become mixed with the other. So we got quite a good result. And regarding the carrageen production, we as I said earlier, there's one company they set up on factory with capacity of around 6,000 tons per year, but we don't have raw material. So now they also interested in cooperate with the farmer to and the Ministry of Agriculture to try to develop the area for raw material and focusing on Capaficus alvarezi. For grass area, we have quite a lot of species, but for cultivated species, we have now mainly 3 species. With natural harvest productions around 800 tons per year, and potential area for cultivation is around close to 20,000 hectares. But as but it is before, and we don't have much update in information on this because a lot of attention is given to shrimp because Vietnam is become one of the very big shrimp exporter, and it's dominant. But recently we have, as I said before, we have problem with the environment because after a long time of eutrophication due to shrimp culture, so a lot of them of the pond has been abandoned, and we have to estimate again the area. At the moment, we don't have very good data on the culture, but 3 species, including the Tendopipitata in the north, Pharma in the central, and the Melina in the central. Grass area used to be a very large sector of the fishery in Vietnam in before 2000, but then it's shrunken down because most of the area is converted to shrimp. So we really hope that now shrimp become start to have a problem, and people, at least the government and many of the farmer now they realize that seaweed is also very important, and we come back with seaweed. And for Colepa, it's recently introduced to Vietnam, and at the moment only just around 80 hectares in the central of Vietnam, and around 2,400 tons per year, and mainly export to Japan. Large export, fresh export to Japan. So on the screen you can see how they grow in ponds or recently in concrete tank, and export to Japan. But also recently Vietnamese start to eat seaweed. So we have a very great potential for domestic market. And remember that the population of Vietnam is 100 million. So once they start to use seaweed daily, then we will have a very big market. And this is how they cultivate and clean the seaweed to export to China, to Japan. So this is some of the product export to Japan. But now these days you can see seaweed is sold on the street and in the market, and this is very big change in the behavior of Vietnamese population, because I'm also working with seaweed for 20 years, and 20 years ago we talked to each other of how to introduce the custom to eat seaweed into Vietnam population. But this day we don't have to introduce again. anymore because of the culture exchange. So this day you can find quite a lot of Korean, Japanese product and also Vietnamese product in the market, and people eat quite a lot. So it's changed quite a lot and huge potential for domestic market. And regarding the future of seaweed cultivation in Vietnam, recently, as I explained before we focused quite a lot on shrimp, but now it turned out that we need to diversify, particularly to introduce more seaweed into into aquaculture for sustainable and to balance out the environment. And I can show you some of the, because we also work quite a lot with the environment. So all the, as you see on the screen, the environment in the coastline of Vietnam is eutrophication happen almost everywhere. So you can see from 2005, 2009 here, but I have the update one here. So it come up to 2018 and continue to rise of nitrogen. So eutrophication, it happened all around the coastline. And you can imagine this is the cage culture in Hạ Long Bay, and they have to aerate. Also in Vũng Tàu area, it's just in open area in the sea, but we have to aerate. So you can see that how it's changed. So this also some more information about how eutrophication linked with the algae, the phytoplankton. So recently we also observed quite a lot of red tide, and before 2000, I myself working with the red tide, and we think that the red tide story somewhat the other country like Japan, Korea, not Vietnam, but this day it happened quite a lot in Vietnam. And these two data show that on the left is the phytoplankton count in the Gulf of Thailand. It steadily increased year by year. And this is on the right one, the red one, it's in Hạ Long Bay. The cell count, you can see that in 2000 and in 2012, it has increased by 65-fold. So it's a clear proof of how the environment is changing. And also this is the image of some of the red tide that we got recently. And also the other story, Vietnam is located in the South China Sea, is surrounded by developing country, and all of them are great country in terms of nutrients added into the coastline. So you can see that on the right hand side is the green tide in China, and we share the border with China and also some other country in the area, and we see it something like the a region that raise in pollution, particularly in eutrophication. And what is the government vision about this? So because we are directly under the Ministry of Agriculture, so we have quite direct advice to the ministry. So it means that to the government of how to utilize the chance of to balance out, to use seaweed as a factor for sustainable aquaculture, to introduce back and the fact is that as said that in the past it used to be a very great sector of aquaculture, but recently it's replaced by shrimp. But shrimp bias approach will lead to unsustainable aquaculture. But seaweed plays in opposite way. because shrimp will add nutrient into the environment. And so seaweed can help the eutrophication, coastal eutrophication problem. And also, if we come back to seaweed, we can solve another problem is salt invasion. As if you recently in the Mekong Delta area, we have a serious problem of sea invasion because of the drought, of the damping, or maybe of the sea rising, or maybe all of them in combination. And in some areas, we cannot cultivate rice anymore. So the government intends to convert into aquaculture area. And seaweed is one of the highlight subjects that we are heading to. And the second one is the domestic market. As I said before, that producing seaweed is not just for export, but also for the domestic market. For Vietnamese are now changing to behavior to eat more seaweed. And the action of the government includes various action, including the very recent master plan of aquaculture. They will buy us on the seaweed. So we introduced quite a lot of intention to introduce back seaweed into the system. And recently, we also the government also support more study on seaweed, and this is quite changing because 10 years ago or 20 years ago, we will not have any fund on that. And they also have many occasions to bring companies, researcher, and policymaker together. And we really hope that a new era of seaweed motivation will come back in the few in the coming time. And RIMS, that is our institute, is can be as contact points with company, with a foreigner to motivate it. So I mean that the potential for seaweed cultivation in Vietnam is quite a lot, but recently it's outcompeted by shrimp. But now the government come back with the more appropriate approach. So seaweed industry, we hope that there will be quite a lot of change in the coming time. So that's all of my share. So thank you very much for giving me my chance to come to this society. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. That's a very interesting presentation on the challenges and the prospects for seaweed business in Vietnam. It's interesting to know most of the Southeast Asian countries, it's a big food commodity, but not so much in the South Asia. So really interesting to see both business and food industry developing together. So we have the next speaker, Dr. Anicia Hurtado from the Philippines. And Dr. Anicia is a senior scientist. She retired from the Southeast Asian Fisheries Development Center, the SEAWEED Aquaculture Division. And she has a long career spanning more than 25 years with seaweed research. After her PhD from the Kyoto University in Japan, most of her research was focused on seaweed in the Philippines, and she has a lot of stories to bring. She has also authored a book devoted to seaweeds industry in the Philippines, and I have the privilege to invite Dr. Anicia. Please. Dr. Anicia? Okay, you're still muted. Dr. Anne, you are muted.
No, I have a recorded presentation.
Okay. Okay. So it will be presented from NCDC. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
A pleasant afternoon to all. Today, I'll be sharing with everybody some science-based innovations for the sustainability of red seaweed cultivation, Capophycus cercotoni in particular. To begin with, global seaweed aquaculture production is led by China, that is mainly for temperate seaweeds like Saccharina, Undaria, and Pyropia, followed by Indonesia on Capophycus, Eucheuma, and Gracilaria, then Korea, which farms seaweeds just like China. The Philippines also farm Capophycus and Eucheuma, but to a lesser extent on Gracilaria. Other countries like Japan, Malaysia, and Tanzania contribute also, but in lesser volume. Eucheuma denticulatum, the Spanish Eucheuma is produced in small volume, ranging from 84,000 to 274,000, reaching its peak in 2015. It can be gleaned farther from the table that Eucheuma spp reached its highest volume in 2015, that is 10.189 million, but declined in the following 3 years. It should be noted that Eucheuma was the first genus name of Capophycus until 1988, when it was identified as a distinct and separate genus from Capophycus. Today, there are two major commercial species of Capophycus. These are alvarezii and striatus. Hence, I would say that Eucheuma spp and Capophycus alvarezii must be birds as Capophycus spp, which are entirely different from the Spano Eucheuma or Spinosum, to make the former seaweed as the major red tropical seaweed being commercially produced globally, especially in Southeast Asian region. Capophycus alvarezii reached its highest volume in 2010, that is 1.884 million, and declining the following 3 years. An increasing volume of Gracilaria was recorded from 2000 to 2016, but decreased slightly in 2017, and more decrease was recorded in 2018. It is only Porphyra spp and Porphyra tenera which recorded increasing volume from 2000 to 2018. These are the major red seaweeds cultivated commercially in the Philippines. That is, 3 species of Capophycus as alvarezii, Malaysianus, and striatus, 1 species of Eucheuma, that is denticulatum, and 2 species of Gracilaria, Pharma and Heteroclada. While there are emerging red seaweeds from wild populations awaiting for domestication for commercial cultivation later, these are Betaphycus philippinensis, a source of beta-carrageenan, Calliophyllus, Gratilopia, Halimenia, and Porphyra, which are excellent as sea vegetable salad. Seaweed industry is faced with challenges just like any other industry. These are low productivity and production due to poor farming practices, insufficient financial and technical support from the government and academia, respectively, that is, shortage of capital for expansion, lack of crop insurance, weak industry-academia linkages, disease and pest infestation, poor biosecurity measures and farm management, that is, lack of specific policies for seaweed. For the industry to remain robust and sustainable, there must be adoption of biosecurity measures and good aquaculture practices, GAQP, for seaweeds, which are all science-based knowledge and information for the framing of policies. We have to maximize available cultivable areas using fast-growing and climate change resilient strains and cost-effective culture techniques, and diversification of crops and product applications. The question is, what are we going to do in order for the seaweed industry to remain robust and sustainable? We don't have to reinvent the wheels, as they say, but we have to make some innovations based from strong and reliable R&D results. For innovations, a sound farm management and adoption of biosecurity measures are needed, like proper zonation of farm structures to allow free water movement, rigid screening of propagules, only young, robust, and healthy seedlings to be used, acclimation of seedlings for 3 to 5 days, especially when these are sourced outside your farm area, removal and collection of macroepiphytes and must be brought to the land, strengthening of main lines and support structures to avoid biomass loss, disinfection of cultivation ropes for 2 to 3 days sun drying every after use to kill adhering spores and minute unwanted seaweed species and animals. And finally, practice following, at least resting the farm area for 1 year or 2 for natural nutrient replenishment. Another innovation is shift from shallow water to deeper waters of farming, that is at least more than 4 meters during the lowest tide, especially during this global climate change time. Though the latter culture system entails higher investments than the former, return on investment is higher as claimed by earlier reports like Hurtado 2013 and Valderrama et al. 2013. The use of fast-growing cultivars, like the different strains and morphotypes of Capophycus, is another innovation. Shift from traditional ways of tying seedlings using non-biodegradable soft plastic tie-tie to a more eco-friendly and efficient techniques like use of soft rope like polypropylene as loops and tubular nets are highly advisable. Another innovation is the use of micropropagated plantlets using tissue culture techniques developed from the lab for sea-based nurseries and outplanting purposes. These new and improved cultivars developed from tissue culture techniques are more fast-growing and resilient to abiotic stresses, which makes the seaweed more resistant to pests and diseases. Also, the use of seaweed extract biostimulant or SEB is another innovation, as claimed by earlier reports, that is mainly for the induction of multiple lateral shoots and dark pigmentation of thallus. Capophycus alvarezi, even when enveloped with filamentous green algae, remains clean, robust, and ice-free after removal of macroepiphytes. Another innovation is the shift from monocrop culture system to integrated multitrophic aquaculture to be more eco-friendly and economically profitable. IMTA is the aquaculture of fed organisms like finfish or shrimp, combined with the culture of organisms that extract either dissolved inorganic nutrients like the seaweeds or particular organic matter like the shellfish. To summarize this presentation, a sustainable industry involves the interrelationship of social and economic aspects to be equitable, social and environmental aspects to be bearable, and economic and environmental to be viable. Thus, a highly sustainable industry is achieved. We should always remember that no man is an island. We need one another to have a comfortable and happy life. A warm and strong, harmonious relationship among all the stakeholders of the seaweed value chain is really imperative. As the farmer is the very heart of the industry, he needs financial support and trainings from the government. Also, the Seaweed Industry Association, the academia and research centers for the latest technology developed from R&D and innovations, the non-government organizations, both local and international for further support, the Marinal, the World's Association of Seaweed-Based Products, and lastly, the end users who purchase and sell the finished products to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anicia, for sharing the experience from the Philippines. Philippines is in fact one of the biggest seaweed producing countries, with the largest aquaculture commodity being the seaweeds. I think your experiences are most valuable to us, and also we greatly appreciate your presence to answer the questions if we have any. And now I think may I invite Dr. Yugraj Singh Yadava. Dr. Yadava is a very well-known name in the industry. He has over 40 years of experience working in the fisheries industry. His career, he started from the Indian Council for Agricultural Research as a scientist. And then he had so many caps to his professional career, working as the Fisheries Development Commissioner in New Delhi, and also then moving on to the Bay of Bengal Program Intergovernmental Organization as its director. So I think his presence, his experience in more than 10 countries in the Southeast Asia, and also working with the international organizations like FAO, will greatly be valuable to the participants here. Dr. Yadava, please welcome to this meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Salin, for this introduction. And before I begin with my presentation, I must also thank NCDC and NIDAC for extending this invitation to me. I have a PowerPoint presentation, which I would start sharing now. So, is the presentation and my voice clear?
Yeah, it can be the full screen mode.
Yeah, it's on the full screen and on my screen.
The slideshow, I think, it should be okay anyway. Yeah.
Just hold on, I'll see if... Yeah, I think it's okay, Salin.
Yep, no problem, yeah.
I have a brief presentation which is structured in the following way. The first 4 slides have been dealt in one or the other way by the previous presenters. I would not go into the details. I would go more into the details for the next 5 slides. But just to provide a brief background on the involvement of the Bay of Bengal program in the seaweed farming. In fact, our involvement has been since the mid 1980s, which is now about 35, 36 years old. And in fact, in 1987 in the Bay of Bengal News, a very interesting article came, which was, "We are hungry only for seaweed." And this article was based on the work that the Bay of Bengal program carried out in a village called Chinnapalam, which is 1 kilometer from Pamban Bridge and about 10 kilometers from Rameshwaram. And there was quite a steady engagement of the Bay of Bengal program for many years on seaweed farming, which involved transfer of technology. And, we brought out excellent video films for creating awareness. Then my personal involvement in the seaweed farming came in the early part of this century when we partnered with Abhiram Seth, and we also provided him the permission for introducing Kappa ficus in Rameshwaram area. I was partly involved with the Coastal Aquaculture Authority at that time. So with this background, I would get into my presentation. I have a slide, which provides the global picture of seaweed production. And as you see that in 2018, the globe produced about 33 million tons. And on an average, 90% of the production came from the farmed species, with an average annual growth of about 4%. And as you see in the colored diagram on the right-hand side, Japanese kelp, eucuma, and gracilaria are the top species, and together they constitute about 70% of the production. China, Indonesia, and the Republic of Korea remain as the main producers, contributing to about 87%. And as we heard from the previous speakers, that the seaweed farming is booming. And in 2017, the global seaweed production was valued at about USD 880 million, the exported price. And in this, Indonesia led the global export with about 21% market share, followed by Chile and Ireland. And the most traded commodities are liver, agar-agar, red seaweed, and the brown algae, Undaria pinnafatida. Coming to India, our seaweed production has hovered around 26,000 tons during the period 2010 to 18. And in contrast to global trend, only 15% of seaweed is farmed, and rest 85% comes from the wild harvesting. The green seaweed makes about 51%, and red seaweed is the major farmed species. The production has remained more or less concentrated on the coasts of Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. And I said, despite almost 3.5 to 4 decades of intervention, we haven't moved beyond Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. And we hope that the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which the Union Secretary Fisheries had also detailed, has provisions to promote seaweed business. And besides extending the production levels in Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, PMMSY would also be helpful in taking seaweed to other parts of the coastline. On the industrial applications, I won't spend more than a couple of minutes. The three key applications which I have presented here in the slide is the agar and alginate and carrageenan. And agar is produced from either Gelidium or the Gracilaria seaweed, and consumption is focused in the pharma bacteriological plates, although there is also some use in food. And Gracilaria agar is mainly used in food and often sold as a single ingredient for home use in Asia. In the alginates, we have the sodium alginate and the propylene glycol alginate, widely used in food and industrial applications. And carrageenan, which comes from red edible seaweeds, is widely used in the food industry for gelling, thickening, and stabilizing properties. And it's also one of the most commonly known faces of the seaweed. all around the world. The demand for seaweed products in India, since the data is not readily accessible, so I'm only presenting the case of agar-agar over here. And we see that the agar-agar export and import from to India in quantity and in value, and also the value realization in the graphs on my right-hand side. The data indicates that there is a growing demand for seaweed products, both for trade and domestic consumption. At the moment, India is a net importer of seaweed products. The unit value of seaweed products imported is usually higher than the exported products. To sum up, there is a scope in the domestic market, both for increasing production and value addition. I would come to the value addition part later in my presentation. The growth in the downstream sectors, the three main sectors, pharmaceuticals, food processing, and the cosmeceuticals. The Indian pharmaceutical sector supplies over 50% of the global demand for various vaccines, and Pharma Vision 2020 by the Department of Pharmaceuticals aims to make India a major hub for end-to-end drug discovery. India also plans to set up a nearly rupees 1 lakh crore, which is equivalent to 1.3 billion USD, funds to provide boost to companies to manufacture pharmaceutical ingredients domestically by 2023. In the food processing, the industry accounts for 32% of the country's total food market, and one of the largest industries in India, ranked 5th in terms of production, consumption, export, and expected growth. And as we heard the gentleman from the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, India is making all efforts to encourage investments in this business. In the Indian cosmetic products market, which is projected to grow at a CAGR of 4.23% during the forecast period 2020-2025, the cruelty-free, no animal testing, vegetarian and vegan, no animal ingredients at all beauty market exploded in recent years globally and has been finding a space in the Indian market too. Dr. Blossom Kocher provided some more details on this aspect. Coming to the value chain part of my presentation, this has been from a publication by Nayesh C in 2007 on the assessment of the seaweed value chain, and we find that it applies to the Indian scenario very well. We have these seed plant crops, which are red, brown, and green macroalgae, and also the macroalgae and vascular plants. In the building blocks, the possibilities are on modification, extraction, and milling, and again, modification, extraction, and other processes, post-harvest treatment. And then in the solutions, we have the biopolymers in functional blends, the processed seafoods, and the prepared nutrients for fed animals. And in the end products, you see that there are four main blocks. One is the food, personal care, and other products, nutrient and nutraceuticals, sea vegetables, and then of course, human food, pet food, fish feed, soil conditioners, etc. So this is a larger seaweed value chain, which perhaps when India starts producing seaweed in optimal quantities would perhaps be the ideal one. As the topic of today's webinar mentions development of entrepreneurship and cooperatives. So here, this particular slide talks about the same thing. And at farming and harvesting level, we find that seaweed is more of a labor-intensive activity, which a couple of speakers before me also mentioned. But the labor intensity decreases and also still remains substantial at the washing, grading, and drying stages. Low level of technology is required for initial processing of seaweeds. And though community entrepreneurship in the above three stages can be brought under the production sphere of the cooperatives. I have lessons from Indonesia and Malaysia as case studies, which show, how the steps would move from one level to the other level. Currently, the farmers and harvesters sell the product at level O, which is also at the lowest level of the value chain. But substantial value addition takes place between levels 0 to level 1, which in the Indonesian and Malaysian case studies roughly equivalent to about 192%. For a profitable and sustainable cooperative, we need to ensure that levels 0 to 2 are captured. Otherwise, the business element of the cooperatives remains at the suboptimal level. Finally, the roadmap, as most of us said, and I'm reiterating, seaweed farming is receiving global attention, and with projected growth in the upstream industries, the domestic demand is likely to increase. There is a scope of rural entrepreneurship in seaweed farming through cooperatives. Self-help groups are already in the process, but I think we need to make them more formal and set up the cooperatives. And as I mentioned earlier, a cooperative focusing only on production drying is unlikely to make enough money to grow. We have to make them business savvy, and we have to bring the business elements into the cooperative functioning to allow them to optimally realize the value from seaweed farming. The entrepreneurship will be on internalizing as much of the value chain as possible. And finally, a clear government policy would be required that inter alia covers identification of suitable areas, forward and backward linkages, market intelligence, which is very weak at this moment, knowledge and capacity building of stakeholders at different levels, and finally, the most important aspect is access to finance. I conclude with this, and once again, thank the organizers for inviting me to make this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yadava, for that interesting presentation on the seaweed value chain and also presenting the roadmap for future. So, yeah, and I would also request the panelists to check the Q&A box, as there have been a few questions coming up. I see a few questions answered by Dr. Anisia and some of them. So kindly check and answer some of these questions if you can. Yeah, may I invite Mr. Sandeep Naik ji for introducing the next speaker, please.
Thank you, Dr. Salid. I want to mention here that Dr. Jadava's presentation has been excellent. He looks after a project Bay of Bengal program. NEDAC member countries are both on the west side of Bay of Bengal, north side of Bay of Bengal, and east side of Bay of Bengal. So there is a lot of synergy which NEDAC can establish. I was also telling Dr. Nguyen from Vietnam, where NEDAC can play a role in seaweed business. Now it's my privilege to welcome Dr. Atul Patte, Commissioner of Fisheries, Government of Maharashtra. He is the man of action from the ground. A lot of possibilities to expand seaweed business and activities in Maharashtra. Maharashtra has a long coastline. Dr. Patne has been handling critical positions in government of Maharashtra. Now I request Dr. Patne to speak.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Yeah. I shared the presentation. Is it available there, or should I start from here? Yeah. So I would like to keep this text perspective for this seaweed project in the country. Maharashtra having 720 next. Next slide, please. Yeah, would definitely love to be part of the $6 billion industry in the seaweed field. And having 720-kilometer coastline, which we share in 7,500 countries coastline, we are fourth in the country. And more than 1 million people are involved in the fishing activity in Maharashtra. So under PMMSY, as it has been mandated that 5% funds should be allocated for seaweed, we also have taken some steps so that in Maharashtra we can promote the seaweed cultivation and also the value addition. Next. Under UNDP support program, earlier we have identified 12 locations and 2,700 hectare land in 4 districts where we can take the seaweed cultivation project immediately, though the total survey of the state is pending and we have requested CMSCRI for doing the same. Thank you. Next. This is our plan of action under PMSY. This year we have been sanctioned this 2,000 wraps and 800 monoline this year. We have also identified some area in Raigad and Ratnagiri where we want to implement the seaweed program as a pilot project. CMSCRI has submitted a proposal for handholding where the seaweed seed bank, which is very crucial in this total project, will be set up in Maharashtra, and the IEC as well as under handholding for value addition will be also there from CMSCRI. Next. The economically important seaweeds in India are, but all these out of these seaweeds varieties, especially the Gracilaria and Capophycus are important in Maharashtra, and we look forward for this type of seaweed varieties in Maharashtra for value addition. Next. Now, from the state's perspective, we would like to put up our demand from all the coastal states. Actually, there is no seaweed bank in any coastal state as such. So, if ICR run any institute like CMSCRI or other institutes like SIBA or other CMFRI can given some mandate that this seaweed bank can be set up in all the coastal states along with diagnosis lab and handholding for the training, etc. It will be of immense help to the coastal states to come up with this seaweed plan. Next. And after the presentation, I would like to go 2-3 suggestions here. As earlier said, that 720-kilometer coastal line in Maharashtra, and we have identified some sites in 4 districts. Now, under PMMSY, the SWOT analysis has been done by our PMC, and the main thing, the blockade will be from the seaweed bank actually. Secondly, the fishers are farmers, but fishing is not the agriculture. There should be clear-cut guideline that fishing, as here the perception that fishers are going to do this type of activity in Maharashtra or other states also. So they should also get some concessional rate loan as the agriculture ministry is extending, and also the benefits under agriculture so that we can promote seaweed for the value addition also. And secondly, the CMSCRI is the only institute in Gujarat which is extending its help. But as the PMSY is already started doing the survey and giving the suggestions, perhaps we will lose 2-3 years in this PMSY. Some other institutes can also take this responsibility. It can be center of excellence, but actually other CMFRI or other institutes can also come up under the ICR to do the survey in the coastal states and help them in finding the locations for seaweed activity. There can be a special sale under CMSRI to set up this institute from ICR central government fund instead of central sponsored fund, or there can be some Seaweed Corporation of India, etc. This type of organizational support where we can look forward for the guidance and the fund also. Doubling farmers' income is one of the goals set up by Government of India, and seaweed cultivation is also one of them. If we can bring MSME or Minister of Food Processing, Agriculture, Fisheries together, only then some visible results can be seen in this area. Otherwise, there will not be any clear-cut guideline under which scheme the seaweed processing or seaweed cultivation will look for the insurance, value addition, and other supports. As pointed out under clean development mechanism, as it is a organic farming, apart from the carbon credit, now we are talking about nitrogen credit and phosphorus credit also. If something can be attributed to this fisherman, to this society, it will be definitely help them to get some income and increase their livelihood. Lastly, that 1 minute film was very good. I think it is from Mandapam, Tamil Nadu, I think. And yes, it's good. 1 minute educative film. I could see that their hands are without cracks. They are not suffering from hair loss, and their faces are without pigments. But are they really able to cross the subsistence level? Because after Mandapam, there is no success story in the country. Unless and until we bring the investor for validation process, we will not able to see this type of changes. I can see the sea change in the sea through seaweed, but some handholding will be required, and perhaps only in that case we will able to see their faces glowing, not due to the nutrients of seaweed, but due to actual richness. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Atul, for a presentation and highlighting the ways where the PMMSY can move ahead to facilitate different states. Thank you very much for your ideas. Now I will move to here Dr. R. Govindarajan. He is from the pharmaceutical industry. Dr. Govindarajan, he heads the R&D unit of Zydus Wellness Limited, India, a major pharma company in India with global presence. It is more than 18 years in research and development. He has been senior scientist in National Botanical Research Institute, head of product technology in Dabur International, head of Himalaya Global Research Center in Dubai. He has been a visiting researcher in King's College, London. He is a visiting professor at NIPER, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and he has been adjunct professor at RAK Medical College and University of United Arab Emirates. I'll not spend more time. I'll welcome Dr. Govindarajan to make his presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I hope my slide is visible.
Yes, your slide is visible. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Naikji, for kind words. I think since from the last 2 hours, a lot of them have already presented a lot on what I was about to speak. So making my job very difficult. Like Ms. Kavita spoke or Dr. Yadava spoke on the applications are very clear. But probably I will speak from a user perspective. From a pharmaceutical industry, most of these, probably a lot of them don't know that it is actually from the seaweed, but carrageenan or agar, are so widely used. For example, a microbiology lab cannot run without the agar medium today. Any microbiology lab across the globe, runs on the medium which is actually from agar. And from half of the tablets that you would find today in the market would have one of these, either the alginates or the carrageenan or a thickener or a starch from the seaweed. And fortunately, having worked in National Botanical Research Institute, I also had some work on partnering with the lichenology lab or the lab which was working on the mosses, where I had some publications on the antimicrobial efficacy or converting these seaweeds into a pharmaceutical application. So I think I don't have to talk a lot about this. A lot of people have already spoken about the seaweeds. I would say majorly getting straight into what they are used by us, especially in the industry. I would say majorly for the manufacture of the colloids, agar, algin, carrageenan, and these are common terms that we use in our industry. Even in food industry, as some Dabur or any juice industry or the cake industry or the jellies that you see, the vegetarian source of jellies, pectins, almost any food industry you would take that cakes are all very commonly used. And of late, we have also seen a lot of pharmacological activity, medicinal properties coming out. Seaweeds are also, we did nutritional profiling, though it has not come big in the nutrition industry, in the nutraceutical industry, but we found a lot of them being very rich in protein, vitamins, minerals. I think a lot of work needs to be done on this. A lot of policymakers are here. If we, work on towards vitamins, minerals, and trace elements, I think we have a good source if sustainable availability is available there. And a brief number, a lot of these, I was just browsing yesterday or a couple of days back. I think a lot of research have happened in the Europe and Southeast Asia. A couple of Indian papers were available, but a lot of skew towards Europe is what I found. And this is something that is common when it comes to seaweeds. Hydrocolloids are the major one components when it comes to the industrial application. From an industry perspective, hydrocolloids are very, very important. Right from any, from the mayonnaise to even the modern foods. I'm not even talking about the traditional foods. Even the modern foods, cakes, pastries, ice creams, all of them use hydrocolloids from the seaweeds. Then we have the nutraceutical industry, hasn't become big, but towards getting big. Pharmaceutical industry, of course, uses in both ways, both for its medicinal properties as well as for its in the formulation aid. Of course, we have phytoremediation, energy and fuel. A lot of people have already talked about it. As hydrocolloids, a lot of commercial importance. Alginates, carrageenan, and agars have been very common. As I said, any microbiology lab you will not find agar. Without agar, you can't run a microbiology lab. Agar users have been from thickening in confection industries to bakery industries, even as stabilizers. The cheese that you eat, a lot of them use agar for their stabilization. It is also used as clarifying agents in liquor industry, alcohol industry. It's also used as a laxative sometimes, and also as a drug vehicle in pharmaceutical industry. In cosmetic industry, agar serves as constituent. I have seen a lot of skin creams having agar, but it's decreasing with the new carbomers that have come. Alginates, again, alginates are the jellies, the vegetarian jellies. Alginates are very common. They were also used as sodium alginate was also used in as emulsions. In toothpaste industry, it's very commonly used, even in shaving creams and all. And majorly, I think one of the major uses is also in the dentures, the denture molds. I think Ms. Kavita spoke about it. Denture molds and denture fixatives. Also, the alginates are very commonly used. Carrageenan, I think all of us who have studied pharmacy in our B.Pharm, M.Pharm, we would have studied carrageenan as one of the major pharmaceutical aids. Apart from that, one of the other where it is not mentioned in any papers, but we use it as commonly as from a user perspective. Say, when we study anti-inflammatory activity of any molecule, carrageenan is used to induce inflammation in the rat spa. Spa edema method, carrageenan induced spa edema method is most commonly used, and it's one of the common ones to induce edema in rats, and that's why we study the anti-inflammatory activity. In terms of pharmaceutical use, I just found from algae, they were used as pigments, they used as carotenoids, as source of PUFA. PUFA, especially DHA, a vegetarian source of PUFA. Apart from fish oils, a vegetarian source of PUFA is something that if we can promote, it will be one of the biggest things to happen. Vitamins and minerals, of course, trace elements. I have not seen a lot of papers on this. I have not seen a lot of work happening on this. But if some concerted effort is done, I think there's a lot of scope on these as a potential source of nutraceuticals. In terms of biological applications, we found spirulina, chlorella. Surprisingly, chlorella tablets are so widely available, as a source, both as a nutraceutical, very widely, very popularly available, and very expensive also. So prehistoric times, seaweeds were widely used as foods only and chief source of vitamins and minerals. But as extraction and modern terms of extraction and isolation came into effect, a lot of other activities have been reported, from anti-cancer to antiviral to antifungal. Today, we are all sitting with in a viral pandemic and looking at a lot of antiviral agents in the market. Probably some considered effect. antiviral efficacy have been known for potentially. Carrageenan itself is known to be having antiviral activity, but the fucoidan has been reported. I found a lot of papers on fucoidan having antiviral properties. Other pharmacological property reported include antioxidant activities. They should have antioxidant activity because of their environment that they grow. There were papers on reports on it controls the heart disease and stroke. Antimicrobial and antifungal activity is very, very common. I have myself published a couple of papers on its antifungal activity, anti-inflammatory activity, anti-cancer, in diabetes, in ulcer treatments, and in goiter treatments also is known. So to sum up, I found a paper where it summed up saying that in food applications, where all it is used, in medicinal applications in these conditions, in rheumatoid arthritis or stomach disorders, and in bioactive properties, they were found to be having some immunomodulation and antiviral activities as well. Some of the products which are available in the market, I could just see, these are very expensive products. If you go to Amazon or official website, you find that exorbitantly high cost, and they sell like hotcakes also. Chlorella, for example, sells at a very high, very fucoidan and chlorella are very expensive also, and those are some of the uses that I could find. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Govindarajan, for very crisply presenting how seaweeds are being used in the pharmaceutical industry, and also telling where the future lies, where the industry and the producers can move ahead to reap the benefits in the context of seaweeds. Thank you very much for participating in this program. Now I'll request Dr. Saleen to take over and introduce Dr. Sushila Matthew.
Thank you, Naikji. Yeah, may I introduce Dr. Sushila Matthew? She's a principal scientist in the Central Institute of Fisheries Technology in India. It's ICR, premier ICR institute, focused on post-harvest fish processing technologies. And she's also my senior in the College of Fisheries in Cochin, where I had my bachelor in fisheries science and master's in aquaculture. So I'm very happy to see her again after a long time. And she's a principal scientist focused mainly on the fish processing technology. And CIFT has, of late, has been focusing on seaweeds, and they have a few technologies, patented technologies, and which have been transformed to business enterprises. And we'll be very happy to hear from Dr. Sushila on these aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saleen, for the introduction. So, respected delegates of today's international webinar, Entrepreneurship Development on Seaweed Business by Cooperatives. And I am Dr. Sushila Matthew. I am heading Biochemistry and Nutrition Division of ICR Central Institute of Fisheries Technology. And today's topic of discussion is on seaweed-based functional foods, business models from ICR CIFT. So as you know, marine flora and fauna, they are excellent sources of bacterial compounds, and they represent a valuable source of new compounds. And among the marine organisms, seaweeds, they represent as the richest source of bacterial molecules, and they are reported to have many health benefits. So based on its bioactivities, a lot of applications are there for seaweeds in biomedical, nutraceutical, aquaculture, and cosmetic fields. So when you see the global production of seaweeds, nearly 30 million tons of seaweeds are being produced, and mainly it is from the culture side, and only 5% is from the nature. There are many countries are there which is having good global production of seaweeds, mainly China, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam and all. So in India, we are not using seaweed for food because we don't relish the taste of seaweed that much. So our industry is mainly based on hydrocolloids, mainly agar, arginate and carrageenan. And here the use of seaweeds in nutraceuticals is still explored, and especially in the commercial basis. So in India, mostly the culture is being done in Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, and the species that is being used is Capaficus alvarezi. So regarding the global production, when we see every year there is increase in the culture, but from the wild, the collection, it is almost stagnant over the years. So among the different continents, Asia ranks first, and among different countries, China ranks first in the production. And regarding the bioactive compounds from seaweeds, there are many compounds which are of very importance, like sulfated polysaccharides. They gain importance because of its antioxidant, anti-tumor, and other properties. Similarly, proteins are there because it contains, seaweeds contains all the essential amino acids. So that way, seaweed is good. Then seaweed contains all polyunsaturated fatty acids, omega-3, omega-6 fatty acids, and contains good amount of minerals and trace elements. Similarly, contains good amount of polyphenols, sterols, and pigments, especially as this fucoxanthin. So these are compounds have good bioactivities like antioxidant, antifungal, antimicrobial. Similarly, cholesterol lowering. So these compounds have gained importance these days. So when we see the biochemical composition of seaweeds from different categories like green, brown, and red, we find a lot of variation among the different classes. Similarly, between the species also a lot of variation we can see in the biochemical composition. So a lot of work we have to do further to make a database on this, the biochemical composition of seaweeds. So regarding the important molecules from seaweed, the most important one is fucodan, which gained much attention these days. It's a sulfated polysaccharide. It is usually extracted from brown seaweed, and this is reported to have antiviral, anti-tumor, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antibacterial properties. Another important compound which is of importance is fucoxanthin. It's a pigment that is also very important because it also has the properties like antioxidant, anti-diabetic, anti-inflammatory. It's all proved. So, but in global production of fucoxanthin is only 500 tons. So in India, we are not producing much, and a lot more has to be done to increase the production of fucoxanthin. So another important compound is alginate. We have an industry in alginate. But of late, these alginates are being used for other pharmaceutical purposes, like it has hypercholesterolemia effect, and even in drug delivery systems, alginates can play a very important role. Another important compound is carrageenan. We have an industry on carrageenan. Agar, carrageenan, and alginate industry is there in India, but this carrageenan is having antiviral properties. So this can be utilized for in that respect also. Even in drug delivery systems, carrageenan can be utilized. So when we see the industrial utilization of seaweed, as I told, these are agar, arginate, and carrageenan. They are being used as thickening agents and hydrocolloids. So globally, nearly 10 million tons of seaweeds are harvested for hydrocolloid production. In India, the production of these are not that much, though the industry exists, and ICRCFT was supporting these industries in the early years. So recently, we have concentrated ICRCFTs and Institute of Fisheries Technology coaching. We have done intensive research on seaweed, and our focus was on nutrient and contaminant profiling of seaweeds, then extraction and characterization of active compounds from seaweeds. Then we established the bioactivities using animal models, and we developed some nutraceuticals. And with our agri-business center, we could transfer these nutraceuticals or functional foods to the industry. So this is regarding our agri-business incubation center. This is one of the best in ICR. And here we transfer the technology through our agri-business incubation center. This is any entrepreneur can come and incubate here. And during the first or second year, they will be incubating in our incubation center. And along with the researchers, scientists, they will work together and will bring out the technology. And finally, when the technology is mature enough, they will start their own programs. So this is how the Agri-Incubation Center of CFT is working. In the past few years, nearly 50 technologies we could transfer by this mode. So some functional foods we have developed from seaweed, and nearly 7 technologies we could transfer recently. And one is fucoidan. Dr. Govindarajan was explaining about fucoidan. So it is a wonder drug. So this actually is a sulfated polysaccharide. And what we have done is, like Dr. Yadav was telling, we were trying to make the value chain. So first extraction process we could standardize. So seaweed, the main problem is that its cell wall is very thick. So we have to break the cell wall. So we have to use enzymes to extract the active principles from the seaweed. So we use the technology, and also we concentrate on green chemistry because we never used any solvents for extract. And we used supercritical fluid extraction for the extraction process. And this we freeze dried because fucoidan is a wonder drug. It's having so many properties. So this technology we transferred to amalgam. And in the international market, fucoidan is very costly. And now amalgam started exporting this product to foreign countries. So they could establish a market there. So CFT is very happy about it. Another thing is our publication on fucoidan. That is, WHO has recognized this publication of ICR CFT to promote seaweed as an immunoremedy against COVID-19. Another product what we have transferred the technology is a micro-encapsulated fucoidan that we mixed with green tea extract. So the product what we obtained had a very good antioxidant property. So this we actually, micro-encapsulation is a process by which there will be slow release of fucoidan from inside, because we are using a wall material, and by spray drying we are making the product. So the bioavailability will be better. And this process, for extraction, again, we use the green technology process. And this we transferred to Bodina Naturals Private Limited. So they have brought the product to the market. Another technology what we have transferred is, because when we extract the fucoidan, it was it is in the form of brown color because we are extracted from sargassum. So we mixed with grape juice and we made a juice out of it. And this technology we have transferred to Kerala Nutraceuticals Private Limited. Then this fucoidan again we mixed with the yogurt, and the consistency of the yogurt we maintained by adding fucoidan, and the amount to be added also was standardized. And this product actually we have transferred to Kerala Cooperative Milk Federation, that is Milma, and they are in the process of making it. Another technology what we have transferred is seaweed cookies. So with seaweed, we have incorporated cookies that improved the nutritional value of cookies. So fiber content also could be increased, the protein content could be increased by incorporating seaweed to the cookies. And this technology actually we have transferred to a local entrepreneur. So these are the technologies we have transferred already, and another some technologies are in the pipeline. So one is seaweed puree. So this is an extruded product. Actually, one woman entrepreneur, she was very successful incorporating prawn extractive to puree, and so that increased the nutritional value of this puree, because puree it is not having usual extruded snacks, they are not having much nutrition value. So when we added prawn to that, it improved the nutritional value of puree. So here what we did, we added seaweed also, and that improved the shelf life of the product. And this product is ready for commercialization. Another one, what we have done is we made a seaweed aqua booster. So this we tried to make some fish feed supplement from brown seaweed. And so we did some research on that, and we found that along with the seaweed root extract, if you add chitosan or vanillic acid, that will improve the nutritional value of the product. So this product is also ready for commercialization. Then we extracted seaweed fiber, and this we did from Gracilaria edilis, and our product is 96% dietary fiber. This we can compete the fiber that is available in the market. So this technology is also ready for commercialization. Then we have added seaweed to sausage, because sausage industry is facing some crisis now. So if you can incorporate some nutrient to sausage, definitely that will add value to the sausage. So we try to add seaweed and the level as well as to be added, and how the composition can be maintained. So all that we have worked out. So this technology is also ready for commercialization. Then we are incorporated seaweed to noodles. So pungaceous meat along with the seaweed, we added to noodles, and we made the noodles, and definitely it is having more nutritional value. Then seaweeds, especially the alginates, that can be used as a coat. So that is for preserving the fish products. So it can act as a seaweed coat. So this also we have standardized how much to add the alginate, how to prepare all that. Another one is like a seaweed edible wrap. So this is for edible products. So along with the food, the wrap also can be taken inside. This wrap will definitely increase the shelf life of the product. So here what used is a sodium arginate and protein-based filling that we prepared, and we found that it is increased the shelf life of the product. So recently we introduced 3 products to the market, that is to become part of the fight against COVID-19. So it is a combination of 3. That is, one is a hand sanitizer. In that we added fucodan and carrageenan because they have antiviral properties. And there was a gargle that is just to destroy the virus in your mouth and other mouth. And another one, fucodan capsule, that is to improve the immunity. So these 3 products we had transferred to Bodyland Natural Private Limited, and they are now bringing that to the market. So regarding seaweed, we have done some work on nutraceutical production, and also we have attempted to transfer the technology to the entrepreneurs. And for sustenance of this, there should be a supply of seaweed in a regular basis, so that for that seaweed culture has to be promoted. So then this biofertilizer and biostimulant industry is already existing, so that also should be maintained to improve the seaweed utilization. Then other areas where we can utilize is on biofuels and cosmetics. So biofuel, the National Biofuel Policy of India targeted 20% of blending of biofuels by 2030. That seaweed can play a major role. Similarly, seaweeds can be used as ingredients in cosmetic production also. So thank you. That's all from my side. I thank the organizers, especially the Department of Fisheries, NCDC, and NDA for giving me this opportunity and giving ICICF the opportunity to present before. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shushila, for the wonderful presentation and the highlighting all the really patented products in a way that has penetrated the business in pharmaceuticals or whichever way that can. Yeah, I would now request Mr. Sandeep Naik ji to take over.
Thank you, Dr. Susila. You have really given a lot of ideas to expand the business of cooperatives. You have already working transfer technology to one of the cooperatives in the dairy sector in Kerala. Thank you very much. Now I'll introduce my colleagues, Dr. Rajnaresh Gopal and Mr. Nilesh Patil from NCDC. Dr. Gopal is a PhD in FES endocrinology. He currently works in the NCDC as Deputy Director. Mr. Nilesh Patil, he is an MBA in Agribusiness Management, and he has done Bachelor of Fisheries Science from College of Fisheries in Ratnagiri. He currently works as Assistant Director in NCDC. I request my colleagues to make their presentation.
Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity to share our. Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity to share our views. आप सबों को मेरा सादर नमस्कार. Ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to all of you. This is one of the closing presentation based on the concept note that was shared with all of you before this event. Here the focus is on seaweed scenario and its support system in India is a thrust area. This presentation is by myself, R.N. Gopal, and my colleague Nilesh Patil. This slide highlights the global scenario of seaweed business. The most important part is here to tell that even at the production level, the seaweed business has effectively grown more than 100% in last 10 years, from 14.7 million ton to 13.4 million ton during 2005-2015. You can see in this graph. And not only that, more importantly, seaweed business industry is worth of $12 revenue per year assessed by FAO. There is a rising demand of sea business. The key players are obviously producers, various FMCG companies, different research organizations, medicinal and cosmetic manufacturers, fertilizers, and many more. The global scenario, it is obvious that the consumer are getting more aware about the benefit and use of seaweed. Hence, the demand of seaweed business is increasing day by day. The seaweed extract business is dominated by mainly Europe. More than 80% seaweed production come from China and Indonesia. And the same region is the leading exporter, including Korea and Philippines. And the main exporter are Japan and the United States of America. In India, the main production area are Tamil Nadu and Gujarat coast and its island. और यहाँ पे लगभग 200 से 300 स्पीसीज पाए जाते हैं जो कमर्शियली बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. और लास्ट ईयर 2020 में इनका प्रोडक्शन लगभग 26,000 टन था. However, due to the potential of enhancing the income and traditional fisher folk, the large employment generating opportunity in India, it has taken as a focus by Government of India. The opportunity comes from very long coastline that is more than 8,000 kilometers, with mainly inhabited by traditional and marine fisher folk. It will enhance the livelihood of fisher folk communities, and it will also strengthen the supply of seaweed-based products and its application. And equally importantly, it is essential for environmental, for the ecosystem. It will act as a major tool to help treat our pollution and mitigate both CO2 emission. The steady growth seen in the consumer demand across the sector, both in domestic and international. That's why Government of India has planned taken as a to promote seaweed as a special case as a catalyst on a mission mode project, as our Secretary Sir has highlighted in the initial inauguration of the presentation. Now I request my colleague Nilesh Patil to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, and good afternoon to everyone. As we saw earlier that there is opportunity for seaweed business in India, and hence Government of India is now working as a catalyst for seaweed business activities. It has trust on development and growth of seaweed businesses. And अभी 2020 में भारत सरकार ने प्रधानमंत्री मत्स्य संपदा योजना की शुरुआत की है, and it will bring big organization and institutions like NCDC and FDP and others together. Very importantly, it will catalyze businesses by supporting infrastructure, knowledge, hand-holding businesses, and building international collaboration. आने वाले सालों में पूरे भारत में 720 फिशर फार्मर प्रोड्यूसर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बनाई जाएगी, जिसमें एनसीडीसी ये बनाने में सपोर्ट करेगा. NCDC is promoting 3C concept, which is cooperative, corporate collaboration, including with industry houses like CII, ASCOM, PhD CCI, ICC, and others. Ladies and gentlemen, now seaweed sector is part of Blue Revolution, and the total outlay of Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana is more than $3 billion. Out of this total outlay, more than $100 million has been allocated for seaweed sector, and it has been expected that it will create 800,000 employment in the seaweed sector. It will bring socio-economic empowerment of coastal fishers, especially fisherwomen. It will support infrastructure and activities to mitigate business risk and business growth. Financial support by government by way of which is 100% subsidy for the projects like genetic improvement program and nucleus breeding center. It will support innovative projects on seaweed business activities. It will also support businesses with 40% subsidy, and for some special cases, 60% subsidy for establishment of seaweed culture by various ways like raft, monoline, tube net method, including inputs, and it will support establishment of seed bank for seaweed activities. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some challenges. As we discussed earlier, there are some challenges in seaweed business activities, like there are inefficient production, there are lack of business in some farmers. There are no doubt there are certain marketing constraints in this industry. Due to low trust on this seaweed business activity, there are very limited extension services available. There is lean period in monsoon due to coastal turbulence, but this is only for short period of time. And there are ineffective collaboration with research and industry. And most importantly, there is very limited credit and financial support available for seaweed business activity. But all these challenges has been addressed in Blue Revolution 2020, and NCDC is also looking forward to support seaweed business activity in all part of India. On the other side, as we discussed earlier, there is business demand in medicine sector, cosmetic sector, industrial uses, export market, and food and fertilizer sector. And by considering all these, NCDC is coming with a very interesting development model for seaweed business activities. It will leverage scheme grant from Government of India, and as NCDC's capability to give credit support, and NCDC's own training institute, which is known as LINAC, will give handholding support for seaweed business training and capacity building activity. Ladies and gentlemen, we are targeting primary fisheries cooperatives, fish farmer producer organization, and federated SHGs. And the major agenda of this proposed model is to have economically sustainable development. It will bring long-term income growth. It will add product diversification. It will have sustainability benefit. It will build partnership with user industry, and it will have collaboration with scientific research. And the idea behind this model is to expand the business ecosystem of fisher cooperatives with larger supply chain processors and users, and to bring holistic and long-term focus on scaling up of seaweed businesses. I am hopeful that this is useful to you, and we have shared concept note on seaweed farming with all of you. And जो cooperative society NCDC से क्रेडिट सपोर्ट लेना चाहती हो, या जो सोसाइटी हमसे ट्रेनिंग सपोर्ट लेना चाहती हो, वो नेशनल कोऑपरेटिव डेवलपमेंट कॉर्पोरेशन के इस पते पर हमें संपर्क कर सकते हैं. एंड वी आर लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड ए वेरी सिनर्जेटिक रिलेशनशिप विद ऑल ऑफ यू. थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक यू.
Thank you, Dr. Rajnaresh and Mr. Naresh Patil. Now I request the coordinators to take over. Dr. Salim.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. Yeah, in fact, there was a last presentation and we have some time for Q&A. I see some of these questions have been answered in the chat box, but may I now ask a question to Dr. Thierry Chopin, because it's so late for him. So there is a question on the inland indoor farming, because seaweed is mostly can be farmed in the sea, but what is the prospect? So how it can be done in the inland areas or indoor conditions? Is it really feasible?
Question is for me?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say, yes, in seawater we use seaweeds, but practice that is very close to integrated multi-trophic aquaculture is also aquaponics. And we are working also on aquaponics because, for example, the beginning of salmon is in fresh water. And I think there was a question, somebody asked a question about in Kerala on the backwaters, and which I visited once, and it's a beautiful region of India. I think in the backwaters, it's much more fresh water. So maybe instead of seaweed, there is room to grow aquatic plants. But aquatic plants and other plants that you can grow in aquaponics, aquaponics is the same principle as IMTA. So I think there is quite a lot of work that can be done.
Yes, yeah, connected with that, the production side. In many countries, there is an issue of leasing the public open water bodies in the coastal area. So what kind of system for example, in Canada, how is it the licensing system works? How the coastal areas are allocated for seaweed farming?
Well, I think, like, for example, we are trying to develop seaweed aquaculture in Canada through integrated multi-trophic aquaculture. And I think the concept and the biology of IMTA, nobody disagree with it. Everybody believe in the biology of IMTA. The biggest problem we have at the present time is regulations. In Canada, most of the regulation in aquaculture are addressing salmon aspect, because I would say 85 to 85% of aquaculture in Canada is salmon. So a lot of things is based on site for salmon, rotation. There was mentioning of fallowing and everything, but it's a fallowing for salmon. And then we said, how do we have the fallowing for seaweed, the fallowing from invertebrates coordinated with the fallowing of fish? So there is a lot of regulation issue, because in Canada, like in many other countries, aquaculture is still managed one species at a time. There is not too many countries, I think, that are looking at managing on the species interactions and all these things. So aquaculture at the present time is very much like fisheries management, one species at a time, and we have to go away from that. So I would say the biggest issues at the present time are regulatory issues.
Thank you, Dr. Thierry. I would like to ask the same question to Dr. Anicia and also Nguyen and also Dr. Yadava later. Because there have been a lot of questions on the production issues in the leasing of water bodies. How does it work in Philippines, for example, Dr. Anicia?
Insofar as the Philippines is concerned, you have to get a permit from the local government. It's very minimal. It's only by hectares. And normally, one single seaweed farmer can only farm 1 hectare. So that's only how many in dollars, very minimal. So they have to get a permit from the local government, from their barangay, the smallest unit form of government in the Philippines. And normally the seaweed farms are all in the provinces, so they get it from the local government. They have a permit.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Nguyen, how is the system in Vietnam?
I think it's somewhat quite similar to the Philippines. So the land and the water surfaces belong to the local government, and they can lend it to farmer, and they can use this. I don't have good data how much they can hire, but not very much. But in case that in case of the large company, they can request a large area, and the local government can maybe offer them a large area for a specific production area. So it's also possible.
Is it given to individual farmers or even cooperatives?
Sorry?
The license is given to cooperatives or the only individual farmers?
Both is available.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Yadava, can you please highlight any Indian experience?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Selin. As we are aware, the area between 0 to 12 nautical miles in the sea is within the jurisdiction of the coastal states and the union territories. So any approval or permission within this area has to come from the states and the union territories. But so far, there is no clear-cut policy on the allocation of areas or leasing. So what I would suggest over here is that the Ministry of Fisheries and Animal Husbandry may consider bringing out a model policy which can be shared with the states and the union territories, their views taken, and then a policy can be placed and put in operation. Because at this moment there is nothing concrete, which allows communities to take up seaweed farming. What has been done in Mandapam, Rameshwaram, Tamil Nadu area, and also in Gujarat is more a traditional type of thing, which has been going there for many decades. But I think we need to have a formal policy, a clear-cut guideline on how does a cooperative or an individual farmer get into the seaweed business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yadava. And I think because of time constraint, I will end up with one more question, I think to the Dr. Blossom Kochar and also Ms. Kavita. There have been questions on the procurement. For example, how is the procurement strategy? For example, do you get enough material from the Indian coast that you procure for your products? And how does it benefit the farmers? Like, are you able to give a better price, or how do you motivate the farmers to supply the ingredients, the raw material that you want? I think you are muted, Dr. Blossom.
Yes, okay. So we get enough because we get enough product from there, but we don't get it directly from the farmers. We get it through a second person, a company, so it's through that. But now after this, I think I shall try and get it directly from the farmers. And I think we'll go in more into seaweed and promote it more. So I think we'll definitely need a lot more seaweed, and so we can get it from the farmers this time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And Ms. Kavita, your comments on that, please.
Yes, so we procure directly from the farmers. So sargassum whitey is widely available in the sea, so that is collected and that's easily available. When it comes to the cultivated seaweed, so the Capophycus, that we have, so the way we incentivize the farmers is we do procure bamboo for the raft. We keep, even for the sargassum fisher folk who go out for us, we invest in their boats. So we do a lot of development in the Mandapam area to help them and to make it a profitable venture for them. But ultimately, Capophycus is pretty affected by, for example, this year with the cyclones, all the rafts got completely destroyed. If there is a change in the sea temperature, so the sea salinity this year dipped to about 15%, so a lot of the weeds rotted. So there are a lot of challenges when it comes to the cultivated seaweed, but sargassum and turbinaria, which are just harvested from the sea, those are much more widely available.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's time we wrap up. And before I move to I request Dr. Sandeep, Mr. Sandeep Naik ji for his closing remarks. I think My feeling is that this webinar has been quite a bit successful. And looking at the Q&A, the questions it has generated, the interest it has generated among the participants, not only from India, from many parts of in Asia. This is really an eye-opening, because we always say we cannot call this as a seaweed, because this is really a misnomer. This is not a weed at all. It's a very valuable marine species, and the numerous products that come out of it, I think we have unlimited potential opportunities for expansion of the seaweed farming and the industry. I think NIDAC and NCDC will be continuing this effort jointly with the Government of India, the ministries and other regional organizations. And I really congratulate Mr. Sandeep Naik ji, Chairman of NCDC, and also the Chairman of NIDAC, for his wonderful contribution and initiative supporting the other line ministries in India and also the regional organizations. Thank you very much, and I would request Mr. Sandeep Naik ji for his closing remarks and wrapping up.
Thank you, Professor Salim. This has been a real good experience to carry forward the seaweed business in all its forms across the Asia Pacific, and particularly in India. We have found a lot of complementarities, whether it is in Canada or in different NIDAC countries, NIDAC member countries, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, and some African countries, Middle Eastern countries. We will be working towards that, facilitating cooperatives to come forward with the business ideas involving seaweed business. What Dr. Jadava told, that in the value chain we have to focus on level 1 and level 2 for the cooperative to the farmers, so that they get maximum value, just not being a producer. Overall, I would like to thank both the joint coordinators, Colonel Bikramjit Singh from the National Academy for Cooperative Research and Professor Salim, and all the experts and participants who have come together to make it such an enriching experience today we had. I'll now formally request my colleague, Ms. Inderjit Kaur, Director in NCDC, to present a vote of thanks.
Good afternoon. I am Inderjit Kaur from National Cooperative Development Corporation, Government of India. It is my privilege to present vote of thanks on behalf of the organizers. This event has been jointly organized by Department of Fisheries, Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, Government of India, LINAC, NCDC, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India, and NIDAC, Bangkok. I thank Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, Indian Federal Secretary for Fisheries, for addressing the webinar as chief guest. I thank Shri Manoj Joshi, Additional Secretary, Indian Federal Ministry for Food Processing Industries. I am thankful to Dr. Atul Patne, Commissioner of Fisheries for Maharashtra State, Dr. Thierry Chopin, Professor of Marine Biology, University of Brunswick, Canada, has taken pain in taking part in the webinar at a time which is very early in the morning in Canada. A special thanks to him. I thank Dr. U.S. Avasthi, MD, IFCO, for taking part in the webinar and for his address on seaweed extract-based bioactivator, Sagarika, for increasing farmers' profitability. Dr. Yuvraj Singh Yadav, Director, Bay of Bengal Program Intergovernmental Organization, has wonderfully explained the industrial applications of seaweed farming. My thanks to him. I especially thank Dr. Blossom Kocher, Chairperson, Blossom Kocher Group, for explaining the use of seaweed in cosmetic industry. I'm thankful to Dr. R. Govindarajan, Head Research and Development, Zydus Wellness Limited, for giving an insight into the usage of seaweed in pharma industry. A pioneer in seaweed industry, Mr. Abhiram Seth has all the thanks from us. I'm thankful to Ms. Kavita Nehemia for sharing her valuable experiences. We are thankful to Dr. Nguyen Van Nguyen, Deputy Director, Research Institute for Marine Fish, Vietnam, for sharing in detail the seaweed research linked business in Vietnam, and to Dr. Anicia Hurtado, University of Philippines, for sharing innovations in red seaweed cultivation. We are thankful to Dr. Cecilia Matthew, Principal Scientist, ICAR SIFT, for providing an insight on the business models in seaweed-based functional foods. I thank my colleagues, Dr. Raj Naresh Gopal and Mr. Nilesh Patil, Fisheries Division, NCDC, for highlighting seaweed scenario in India. I thank Colonel Bikramjit Singh, Chief Director, LINAC, NCDC, and Professor Krishna R. Saleen, Honorary Director, NEDAC, Bangkok, for very effectively coordinating the webinar and moderating the sessions.
Thank you.
I consider it a privilege to express my heartfelt gratitude to the person behind this event, Shri Sandeep Kumar Nayak, Managing Director, National Cooperative Development Corporation. Thank you, sir, for conceptualizing this unique and wonderful webinar and providing your guidance and leadership. A big thanks to our teams of LINAC, NCDC, Head Office and Regional Offices of NCDC for putting in their best efforts in making this webinar a success. Last but not the least, we are thankful to our wonderful participants who have joined the webinar through Zoom and other live stream platforms. Once again, thank you very much to all eminent speakers and participants. Namaskar, Jai Hind.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, thank you.